So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ana Lucia. I am part of the VEF team, and I am thrilled to welcome you to our third product session of the VEF Virtual Series. Today, we will explore energy efficiency, information, and capacity building. And we have gathered an incredible group of experts from all around the world to do so. So to welcome you, I would like to request that Ms. Olivia Coldry shares her audio and video, and she's going to give your welcoming remarks. I see her logging in. Hi, Olivia. Thank you for...
Hi, Alexia. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, well, without further ado, let me kick off. I'm sure I'm the last person people want to hear from today, so I will go ahead. Thanks very much, Ana Lucia, for the welcome, and welcome everyone to this session of the Vienna Energy Forum's virtual series, Energy Efficient Products track. My name is Olivia. I'm from the international organization Sustainable Energy for All, and I lead the work on energy finance and clean cooking. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion, centered around the theme energy efficiency, information, and capacity building. So as will be well known by many people on the call, energy efficiency is the most affordable way to decarbonize our economy. It also has the potential to meet up to 40% of emissions reduction targets under the Paris Agreement. However, as we also know, energy efficiency investments are predicated on future cost savings, and interventions aren't as visible as, for example, new generation infrastructure such as solar panels and wind farms. So for those reasons, they're often under-prioritized by policymakers. The purpose of today's discussion is to look into opportunities and best practices to effectively increase consumer awareness of energy efficient products. We're going to investigate the role of suppliers and the service sector as a whole, as well as focus on the need to build capacity through the entire value chain. We'll also elaborate on the need to formalize technician education and training and empower an entrepreneurial ecosystem to pave the way for market transformation and behavioral change. So information and awareness raising on efficiency is key to its large-scale uptake and success. And we know that countries that have made good progress on efficiency tend to have strong information outreach and capacity building programs that support regulatory reforms, institutions, and financial innovation. Enforcement capacity is an important element as well, including the capacity of testing centres to generate knowledge about the quality of products that are coming to market. So put very simply, raising consumer awareness of the many benefits of efficiency helps them make good decisions and saves them costs. Standards and labelling programs are therefore very important tools to inform consumers, and we're going to zoom into the various approaches that countries have taken to effectively implement such programs. So on that note, I'd like to welcome Melanie Slade, who's Senior Program Manager of the International Energy Agency's Energy Efficiency in Emerging Economies program. Mel has spent 30 years in energy efficiency policy development and implementation in many parts of the world, and so a really acknowledged expert. She started out working in the UK government on industrial and appliance energy efficiency, and has since worked with many other governments to establish similar programs, perhaps most notably the Chinese government since the 1990s. So in 2007, Melanie became the chair of Australia and New Zealand's Equipment Energy Efficiency Program. So as an Australian, that's a region that's very close to my heart, where she led the phase out of inefficient lighting. Mel then moved to the IEA in February 2014, where she and her team worked with policymakers in Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, South Africa, and Thailand to develop more efficient or more effective energy efficiency policy, track that policy's progress, and assess its potential. So I'm probably going to hand over to Mel to give a presentation to set the scene for today's discussion on energy efficiency, information, and capacity building. Following her presentation, we're going to move into 3 moderated breakout sessions where our speakers will discuss the topic through 3 quite different lenses. The first breakout session is around global perspectives, where we're joined by experts from the World Bank's ESMAP program, Ozone Action, the UCL Energy Centre, the Copenhagen Centre on Energy Efficiency, and my own colleague Alvin Jose from SEforALL. The second breakout session is around country perspectives, where we'll be joined by speakers from Sudan, Indonesia, Cabo Verde, Namibia, and global organisations such as the Green Climate Fund, GCF, LuxDev, EELA, SACRI. The third and final breakout session is entitled Enablers for Progress, where we're joined by experts from CLASP, Econolaire, the Ghana Energy Commission, Berkeley Lab, and Mexico's National Commission for Efficient Energy Use. So I hope you'll agree that you have a fantastic choice of breakout sessions to choose from and experts to guide those discussions. After the discussions in the breakout rooms, we're going to come back to this plenary session no later than 3:10 p.m. Vienna time, please. So that's 10 minutes past the hour, where I'll then ask the moderator of each group to share the outcomes of the discussions. So on that note, and without further ado, it's now time to turn to our scene setting presentation. So Mel, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Olivia, and thanks to all the team at UNIDO for the opportunity. As all of those who know me know, the product efficiency is extremely close to my heart, and it's a great opportunity to share some thoughts with this community that UNIDO and others are building. So I'm going to start with the big picture, and could I have the next slide, please? So, not surprising, no IEA presentation is complete without the famous wedge diagram. And could we put that in presentation mode? Thank you very much. And I can see it. My site's not so good anymore. So yes, no presentation from the IEA is complete without a picture like this. And Olivia mentioned the numbers earlier, but basically we're saying more than 40% of the emissions reductions we need to meet our climate goals, but also in the IEA Sustainable Development scenario, we look at air quality and also universal access to modern energy services to meet all three of those goals. 42% of the action that needs to be taken is in energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So unfortunately, we have some bad news, and that is that the already slowing rate of improvement in energy efficiency has slowed even further during this incredible year we've just gone through. And most of you, I'm sure, will remember that when the Sustainable Development Goals were first published, there was a call for a doubling of the annual rate of improvement of energy efficiency. And because we weren't making that rate, by the time we came to the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit last year, we were then talking about needing a 3% improvement in annual improvement in energy efficiency. And now we're needing, more than 3%. So, this is the challenge we're now facing. Next slide, please. We published our annual energy efficiency report last week, and this is where the numbers showing the most recent numbers, showing the slowdown come from. We also look in there at investment trends, and the investment that is needed in energy efficiency is not happening. We do find that scaling up investment on energy efficiency has the potential to create millions of jobs, and I'll come to that in a moment. But at the moment, government actions on energy efficiency are uneven. There are some governments who are taking these opportunities and others that aren't. But it's absolutely critical that policy actions taken to return to the higher rates of growth in energy efficiency in order to meet those climate goals. And whilst everybody's talking about this decade, really this next 3 years are crucial if we're going to have the action actually having effect this decade. So next slide, please. So this is the job slide I mentioned. So if you look at the left-hand side of this is looking at jobs created per $1 million of investment in infrastructure. And you can see at the bottom that in the green bars that energy efficiency, we estimate can achieve some of the highest rates of return in terms of jobs per unit of investment. And buildings in particular, both new buildings and retrofits of buildings are extremely profitable places to place money at the moment. The good thing about these jobs is they're local jobs and they're there for the long term. They can enrich society for a very long term. They're not just short-term issues. And also when we talk about spending, if we're buying appliances and vehicles, things that obviously have a huge energy efficiency impact, they can also be good generators of jobs. So in the overall sustainable recovery plan, where we're suggesting that annual investments of around $1 trillion might be made over the next 3 years, energy efficiency related investments are the largest categories of spending in that plan, and they create the most jobs per unit of investment. So again, this is something that you can look at in detail if you're interested on the IEA website. Next slide, please. As I said, we are seeing announcements about stimulus packages to re-kick economies having an energy efficiency component, but not as much as we'd like, clearly. Governments have currently announced about $70 billion in energy efficiency related stimulus. About 85% of that is from Europe, and buildings are the main target. So far, we've not seen the opportunities that exist in appliances being highlighted through these processes, but hopefully collectively, everybody on this event, we can convince governments that appliances are a good way, a good place to invest in terms of recovery. Next slide, please. So governments may not have been making many pledges so far in terms of appliance energy efficiency, but we think these are interesting charts. This is worldwide weekly online shopping for 3 appliances, so washing machines, freezers and dishwashers. And there's been a lot more people looking to buy these appliances, and we suppose that a proportion of these will have been converted into sales. And also that because new appliances are generally more efficient than old ones, this could have had an impact on an early kind of turnover of stock. So this is something that we'll be wanting to watch closely. Next slide, please. So we've seen that there's a lot of opportunity there that's not being realised, and I just wanted to briefly introduce an initiative that has come about through the UK government's presidency of COP26, where they want to drive international action on product energy efficiency. They want to work with like-minded governments to try to double the efficiency of a group of products that are used worldwide. So we're talking about industrial motors, residential lighting, residential refrigerators and air conditioners. And the idea is to use standards, use voluntary measures, whatever tools that governments have at their disposal to try and increase the ambition in energy efficiency of these appliances over the next 10 years, as we said. Next slide, please. So the idea is to think of the next 10 years and a performance ladder across that period of time. And we've got the example of motors here because it's a nice, easy one to describe. As you all know, we already have an international test method for motors that's used by governments around the world. And it also lays out 5 levels of energy performance. And these are used, again, by governments in many, many parts of the world to establish MEPs. So we have here Vietnam with a MEPs at IE1, we have EU with their MEPs at IE3, and we have countries like Kenya and India who also use the IE levels for the label categories. So we've already got this, this culture process. So the plan would be to try and lay out similar ladders for the other products in consultation, of course, with governments who are keen to endorse this initiative, and then work out what the plan can be to move up that ladder using MEPs and voluntary measures over the next 10 years so that we can try and see that doubling of performance. Next slide, please. So we have, I've been talking about standards. This whole series is about appliance policy. And I just wanted to go for a moment to, the policy package for appliances that we all talk about, just to put it all in one place. Because all of these elements are absolutely essential to getting these policies right and therefore being able to reap the benefits that we know we need. So we have regulatory elements, most commonly minimum energy performance standards, but it's really important to effective programs that we have clear roles and responsibilities for officials, but also for private sector stakeholders. And of paramount importance is that we have adequately resourced compliance programs, of course. And then we have the information elements that are going to be discussed further today. And we have also incentives that can be used on a voluntary basis to actually pull more efficient products into the market and make bigger markets for more efficient products, thereby making them cheaper and more widely available to all. And there are various ones of these: public procurement, rebates, innovation, and those sorts of things. And the most effective approach, of course, as we all know, is a combination of these things that's adapted to local environment. But just to, for the benefit of today, every one of these things requires an element of capacity building. And I think from the questions, most of the conversations will probably be about the service sector. So I just wanted to touch briefly on a couple of other things, consumer information and policymakers. So next slide, please. So labels, energy efficiency labels, are supposed to help consumers buy products, more efficient products, and understand the long-term cost implications of what they choose. But sometimes that's not so easy as it sounds. And this is an example where, I mean, a lot of people on the call I know will know where the energy label sits here, but it won't be obvious to all. And clearly, this isn't helping people buy more efficient products. So what do we do about that? Next slide, please. So this is probably one of the world's best examples of moving on to the next generation of energy labels in a way that really does help consumers. So what happens in China is that you can scan the QR code on this label, and behind that QR code, on your smartphone app, you get the energy consumption, you can get the carbon emissions if that's what you're interested in, you can work out what the energy costs are, you can compare with other appliances, but you can also find out how to get the machine serviced, you can do comparisons between machines. So there's a huge amount of information available to a consumer that can be tailored to their own interests and needs that doesn't have to be on the label, doesn't complicate the label at all, and is really much more likely to help them. So, people say, well, what if you don't have smartphones? But this system can also be used by retail staff. They can help consumers, with a tablet in the store, make the same sort of decisions whilst they're, or look at the same sort of information when they're trying to purchase product. But there's an added benefit to this kind of new age digital approach, and that is that this can be used for compliance, so that it becomes very much simpler to do market surveys. It can, in China, the consumers who are scanning these labels are basically, crowdsourcing compliance mechanisms. The data is being sent to a database which is used by government so that they can see how the market's performing, what the price of the products is in certain areas. So it's a rich source of information that's really very, very cost effective. Unlike the systems that we've always had to use of, buying data, which is always old, which is only, partially what we need, and spending a lot of time analysing that, and then making decisions based on something that was collected, 2 years ago, because it's taken that length of time. So this kind of can change our world, this approach. So the difficult area of helping consumers really has become very much easier with digital technology. And then to my last slide, please. The other area of training, of course, is for our policymakers. And this is one that is very, very sadly neglected. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, the IEA has been running these energy efficiency policy training weeks around the world. We've trained more than 1,500 policymakers in more than 100 countries. And appliances is one of the themes throughout the week. And these pictures are from our last training week, which sadly was in 2019, because of course this year hasn't gone quite according to plan. This was in South Africa in collaboration with UNIDO, where we had a large number of participants sharing their own experiences of energy efficiency policy. one of the things that's really important about these events and the feedback we constantly get is the peer-to-peer learning experience between policymakers is the thing that they find most important. We've tried to replicate that to a certain extent this year, but of course, I don't think we'll, in terms of getting that peer-to-peer exchange going, I don't think we'll ever be able to completely replace the face-to-face training, and we very much hope we'll be able to do it again sometime soon. Anyway, this is a crucial element to making appliance energy efficiency as effective as possible wherever we live in the world, so that we can all benefit from the huge contribution that it can make to climate, economic and social development goals. So I'm going to leave it there now, and so that we can go into the more detailed discussions about training. So thank you all.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you to Olivia. I think this is a great introduction for everybody to start our discussions. So with this said, I would invite everybody to go to our breakout room sessions. Now, to access them, please click on the series button on the left. Once you're there, to our speakers, please select your assigned breakout room. And to our participants, please feel free to roam around and select the one that you are most interested in. Also remember that you're more than welcome to make comments or ask questions using the chat to the right, and so engage with the panelists. And last but not least, we would like to let you know that we have recently opened a networking station here at the VEF Virtual Series. So at the end of the event at 3:30, we will give you 15 minutes to connect with our great pool of speakers and participants. So if you're interested, please head over there at the end of the event. For now, I wish you all great sessions. And
I guess we have everyone, and maybe we start because we have 55 minutes, and make sure we get a chance to get this discussion going. I have no way of seeing if I'm not sure I understand if there's other people or not, but anyways, we will start. So for those who might be observing in this session or roaming in the session, as was mentioned earlier, this is so the Energy Efficiency Information and Capacity Building and the Global Perspectives Group. I'm Martina Bossi. I'll be the moderator. I'm a senior energy economist at ESMAP. ESMAP is the Energy Sector Management Assistance Program. It's a technical assistance and knowledge program administered by the World Bank. So the organizers have asked that our session be guided by a broad question that they gave us as: what information, media, and training are needed to deliver increased awareness and understanding of energy efficiency to consumers and create competent professionals? So we're talking about awareness, information, capacity building, jobs. And we'll try to identify the priority areas for possible action to stimulate awareness on the benefits of energy efficiency and understand buying choices and the options for greater gains, and also get a better understanding of the skills that are needed in the workforce. Very important. Also, the jobs agenda, particularly in this context, is important to deliver energy efficiency. So this session is a panel discussion that will be structured around 3 questions that have been prepared for our group. But before I list those 3 questions, and I've shared them with the panelists before, I wanted to introduce our esteemed panelists that will be sharing their ideas, their experience, and their recommendation on this broader question, again, on what information, media, and training are needed to deliver increased awareness and understanding of energy efficiency to consumers and create professionals. So briefly, I will start at the bottom of the screen. We have Dr. Ian Hamilton. He is Associate Professor at the UCL Energy Institute, University College London in the UK. And Ian is also the Executive Director of the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change. And thanks a lot for joining us, Ian. We also have the privilege of having Ayman El-Kaloumi, I hope I pronounced that right, on our panel. He is a program manager at UN Environment. He comes with deep knowledge and experience in the refrigeration and air conditioning industry. So thanks a lot for joining us. We also have Talat Munshi. He is a senior advisor at UNEP DTU Partnership at the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. And he comes with a strong background in issues related to urban infrastructure management and urban planning. And thank you very much for joining us. And last but not least, we have Alvin Jose. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. He's a senior energy specialist at Sustainable Energy for All and comes with deep project management experience in the areas of sustainable energy and environment. So we have a good group here to tackle this issue, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this interesting topic. So again, just before I go to the 3 questions, so they're fresh in your mind, just a bit of housekeeping. We're asking that no PowerPoint presentations are made. And then we ask that you limit your interventions to 3 to 5 minutes so we can get a mix of everyone in all these 3 questions. The audience may share inputs or questions in the chat box, and we'll try to take 1 or 2 comments if we have time, so please do contribute in the chat box. So we have 15-minute session, and we'll set aside like 5 minutes at the end for last minute takeaways, and so the panelists can think about the one thing they'd want to leave the session with. So without further ado, here are the 3 questions. One is, what role does the servicing sector play in advancing the energy efficiency of products? We then have the second question is, can global standards on qualification levels enhance skill levels in developing countries? And then the third question that we have is, what are the best practice examples and success models, and how can they be rolled out internationally? I'll repeat those, of course, but let me then just start. Now we'll start the panel discussion. We'll have the first questions. Again, as we think about how we advance and increase understanding of energy efficiency, there might also be employment considerations. So what role do you think the servicing sector in particular plays in advancing the energy efficiency of products? And I don't know if there's a volunteer to start with, or maybe, is anyone, or I'd invite, I don't know, Ayman, if you want to start, if that's okay with you. Right.
Thank you.
So please, again, limit your questions to 5 minutes so you can get people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martina. And good afternoon, good morning to some, good evening for some who are attending with us today. And thanks for the opportunity to join the Vienna Energy Forum. We are privileged to be here with you today. I'm Taruni, as Martina mentioned, representing the UNEP Ozone Action Team. In order to understand the servicing sector role in advancing the energy efficiency in products, we need first to agree on the definition of what do we mean by the servicing sector, to have clarity about this. In my views, the servicing sector starts from the moment the final product leaves the factory and be ready to be deployed in the market. And this includes different stages, 5 stages, if I may say. The handling, which include the transportation and storage, the installation, the operation, the preventive maintenance and repair, which we commonly use servicing, the end of life and of decommissioning. All these as part of the servicing sector role in dealing with any product in the refrigeration air conditioning product in the market. The connection of energy efficiency may seem to be obvious for the part related to the operation and maintenance, but the relation to installation and handling is as important as the relation to the operation and maintenance as well. And allow me give some examples to better understand what do we mean by this. For example, the poor or lack of careful handling may cause cracks and may also create some damage in piping or some of the parts like the condensing fans, which are critical to ensure the proper operation of the unit. Hence, it may include additional power consumption during the operation of the unit. Another example while installation is the proper connection on site between external and internal units for air conditioning, for example, or checking the variances in the voltage in the location of the installation. All these types of small tips makes a big difference in the operation of the unit, hence the energy efficiency. So a high efficient unit being declared by the manufacturer, if not well taken care of at all the stages that I mentioned, the handling, installation, operation, as well as the preventive maintenance, would definitely lead to unnoticed additional energy consumption. And of course, we are not achieving the goal that the equipment or the product was produced with. Now, having said so, the criticality in servicing is more impactful than the criticality of the product design. The product design is happening once and it's double checked and validated. Even if you have a very good and strong MEPS program, it remains theoretical unless it is operational validated. And the operational validation does not happen in the lab. The lab, the conditions there are very well and carefully monitored by the operational bodies. But what happened in the field is something different. So the servicing sector market is commonly missing such simple tips in the typical types of training and day-to-day operation of practitioners. And I would like to call them practitioners, not technicians, because it includes three categories, in my opinion. It includes the technicians, it includes the servicing companies and contractors who are handling large projects or a large number of practitioners or technicians or engineers, as well as the end users, the consumer themselves, because they are responsible to monitor the operation of any product. So they have a role to play in checking the energy efficiency, even if they don't understand it. And this is our job to make it easy understood to them. So this is in brief how the energy efficiency is critical and crucial to the advancing the product's continued, if I may say, energy efficiency during its lifetime. I can stop here and leave the room for other colleagues to complement and add additional points. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was I wish I would have time to exchange more with you. I don't know if there's others in the group that would like to contribute to this discussion.
Maybe.
Jose, you want
Sure. Yeah, I think I would just totally echo what Ayman has mentioned. And first of all, I think when we look at the servicing sector, I think what we are typically tend to use it in terms of the HVAC industry, generally when we are speaking of servicing sector. And as Ayman has well laid out all the importance of the servicing sector, I think one area that I would like to also link the importance of the servicing sector is very much the success of the standards and labeling program of products around the world. Now, if you think about most of the standards and labeling program that we have seen, which typically transitioned from the US Energy Star program, the Japan Top Runner program, you look at even the EU labeling program, and then it's transitioned into the more developing emerging economies program like the Thailand labeling program, be it India's, China. One of the major thing which a feedback that you always get from policymakers is that one of the biggest feedback that we get from our clients or the general consumers or general public is that, can you guarantee our energy efficiency after we have installed? And most of the time, the policymakers do not have an answer for that. And I feel that the story of the servicing sector and somehow tying that important block into the labeling program is still missing. And I think the future of the labeling program, especially for the commercial building HVAC systems or the residential ACs, refrigerators, a lot of it really rides on that, because I think a lot of people want to, at least the general public or the investors, would like to really see the long-term impacts of the investment choices that they're making in the beginning. So if post-installation the energy efficiency degradation does happen, be it refrigerant leakage or other kind of let us say bad practices are done, and there is not enough awareness among the end users as well that how they should be ensuring this energy efficiency is maintained, then we are looking at a system where all this policy and regulations and a lot of institutional investments are done into these kind of schemes, but they fail. There's no capital raised at the end user level, and the trust is not built. So I would say that to raise the level of trust for these kind of programs, servicing sector plays a key role, especially for the air conditioning HVAC sector. And I think it's time that we need to look a bit more deeper into this. That's all from my side.
Very good, very good. I like how you link the standards and labels to service sector. Does anyone else want to come in on this point?
No.
Okay, we have two of them. So we'll go one after the other. I saw Ian first, so Ian and then Talat, please.
Sure. So I just probably interject on the idea that also the servicing sector can take advantage of the evolution around, say, the digitalization of services. I think this is really a keen approach that we're seeing now being adopted. I work, in the sense of whole building system efficiencies that can be leveraged from that, and being able to, for example, begin to inform the operator, the consumer of the building. We see this in building energy management systems, but with the integration of more high frequency digital sensors across their system, we begin to be able to say, are the signatures of those devices doing as they should intend to? And does that initiate a recommissioning service that would otherwise not be known? So I think there's a lot of opportunity there when we get into this quite detailed, high resolution digital servicing that can then facilitate the thing which is what we need. People coming in, recommissioning the products that have been installed, getting them back to their performance standard as was expected. And I think that's a really key opportunity going forward.
Thank you so much for making that point. So Talat, you wanted to come in on this point as well, on this question.
So basically, I think the trust issue is a basic thing. And like what Alvin said, and I also resonate with what Ayman had said. And as we move forward, actually, and when we look at the global south, especially, I think cost of these products also become very important, and how they come in. And we are doing some work in Argentina and in the building sector. And what we get to know there is that most of the things are imported. And because they get imported into Argentina, the cost of its implementation or cost of the products becomes so high that the other part of the value chain doesn't become important, because there's not enough demand for such products. So in terms of service sector, what I generally look at, I would look at it in a much broader sense. I would also like to include the sector that allows such products to be made also. So the sectors which support production of such products also. So one, this product should be made efficiently, and if they are made efficient, and innovations will have to be made as to how this can be locally manufactured. I don't know how, but probably that has to be the next move. And then after manufacturing, how it gets and installed at the place where it should be installed, and in the manner that it should be installed. So basically, it's like driving a car. So if the car might be very energy efficient, but if you don't drive it properly, then you lose out on the energy efficiency part of it. So so when it is transported and then put up, maybe if it's an AC in the house, and if it is not put up properly, then it is not energy efficient. If there are leakages, for example, in the piping, then it's also not very energy efficient. The second thing that, because there is also this service sector is also a large consumer of energy, and how efficient this service sector becomes in terms of its energy consumption also, in the end, adds up to the entire energy that is being consumed by the whole by energy efficiency products. So I guess a very energy efficient and a knowledgeable service sector, and to support energy efficiency services would be key as we move forward. And I think in the next 2 points we discuss about the knowledge and skills, and which become very important also.
Exactly. So thank you so much. So let's turn to this question 2 that we have. Can global standards on qualification levels enhance levels in developing countries? So I invite, who would be the first one of you interested to talk about whether it makes sense to consider global standards or not on qualification levels to enhance skill levels in developing countries? Anyone want to take? Talat, you want to start?
Yeah, I can.
A little bit in the previous comment, so go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So basically, we have been doing some work on looking at skills and knowledges in Kenya, Argentina, and Sri Lanka. And we also tried to do a comparative work on what has happened in Europe. And then we find out that, for example, others can correct me if I'm wrong. So the education or the knowledge and skills that has developed in Europe is a result of like work which has happened over 5 decades, etc. The push has happened in last 2 decades, wherein the regulations and policies, etc., have come in place. So there has to be demand for the product, for the skills to come in. So, for example, in Argentina, what we have been finding out is there is not enough work for people to get themselves motivated to get into upgrade their skills in terms of energy efficiency products and all. We are looking at the building sector there, and what we are finding out is that most of the people who are working in the building efficiency sector in Argentina, they are self-motivated. So there is not much incentive for people to get into this sector, because there is no demand for work. So unless there is demand for work, so otherwise things would not develop. In Kenya, the things are completely other way around. So in Kenya, like the government has come up with a regulation that you need an energy manager in all industry, which is threshold energy consumption. But you don't have enough energy managers there. So there the demand is there, but the energy managers are not there. So basically, like it's a chicken and egg sort of a situation. Both things will have to go hand in hand. And the way I look at it is that Kenya is slightly in a better situation, where they've already created a demand, and where things can be learned. So things have happened. For example, in EU, like a lot of things have happened, and the education has moved in the direction where they can support energy efficiency demand. So like Kenya and Argentina can learn from it, but the case of Argentina, they will really need to create demand for people to get themselves motivated to learn things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, does anyone, Ian, you want to take this one on? Go ahead, thanks.
Yeah, sure. So I think as well, in the sense of being able to have a benchmark or a guiding standard is incredibly helpful. I mean, one looks at the ISO standards as approaches by which that takes, and the basis for it is that you have a common understanding around what practices, procedures, levels of quality are necessary to achieve the outcome that's being desired here. And in developing countries, I work a lot in South America, and the ability to say what standards should we be either aiming towards, and are there tiers to that standard that are more contextually specific, that allow for variation according to the market needs. I think that's a really critical part of what these standards have, but there still is something which is seen as the top level of performance. Alongside that is you have recognition with standards that have intrinsic value as a result of that. And so being able to refer to a high level standard which has a common agreement around it and a quality assurance around it, I think is incredibly important, especially when you're trying to build a marketplace around that. So this goes back to what both Ayman and Talat said around trust, being able to say that there's trust in the market because there is a standard which is being agreed not only among the group. So I think this is where it's an important part of having global standards, but that they are reflective of the context that they're going to be delivered within.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else want to take this question about qualification and standards?
If I may contribute, Martina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. In agreeing with what Talat and Ayan mentioned, I would like also to refer to the relevant existing models globally. We have two types of standards here we can refer to when we talk about refrigeration servicing sector. We have the International Labour Organization classification of jobs, which is already followed by all countries in classifying the type of technicians or practitioners working in the field. And this is how most countries are developing their TVET system, the technical education and vocational training programs, in order to qualify and certify technicians in the field. This is about the basic job required in order to be able to be a refrigeration technician or a refrigeration practitioner, or an air conditioning, of course. The second part is related to the refrigeration air conditioning competencies or minimum qualification in relation to doing the job perfectly, taking into account environmental perspective. And we have two different models. There is the ISO model, which is extracted from the EN experience, the European Commission experience, which is EN 13313, which is being converted in the last year into an international ISO standard. And you have also the EU experience with the F-gas regulation, which is taking the certification program from an environmental perspective to certify technicians about the safe handling of refrigerants, especially the fluorinated refrigerants. So there are different models available at the global, if I may say, or regional level that can be considered, but unless they are enforced, they remain to be guidelines. They remain to be good reference for countries to follow. And we cannot have one model that fits all because of the different capacities of especially the developing countries, the different institutional training and testing and validation, as well as monitoring and enforcement capacities. So these differences may create different type of models. So in a nutshell, the global resources are available, and but the implementation at the national level, this is what we need to invest in. This is how we need to provide assistance to countries, how to help them taking these global resources and convert them into an enforceable, meaningful tool to certify and train the technicians or the practitioners in the field. Thank you.
Okay. Good point about not forgetting about the local. So yes, Hussein.
Yeah, just to quickly add on, I think pretty much, I think everyone has covered the points which I was thinking of. But one, I think, issue is that when you think of the global south, and it is really good to have global standards. So first of all, I'm totally in agreement to that. But the issue is, I guess, the implementation of it in the global south, and it all comes down to the problem is that currently the education sector is not really, in my experience of trying to implement some of these programs, it's not really intertwined or, let's say, targeted towards the market needs. So what's really happening is that you have this traditional approach where curricula and training is set by academicians, and it is not necessarily set by the private sector or the market. So what's really happening is that the students or the any kind of personnel that come out from this kind of particular course or training curricula or any kind of training framework, they're not really fit for the market, because the market is keep on evolving, it is dynamic, and it is not really there. So there's a need to now move from the traditional TVET approach, the technical vocational approach, to a more occupational standard approach. Which is more industry driven, which is more private sector driven, and it is more tuned to the national context and markets. There's no point in teaching a particular set of skills and competence which does not suit for that particular national context. So I think the industry really needs to get involved into this, at least in my purview. And in the last point now, I have to also actually highlight an opportunity. I think the COVID-19 has really shown to us that at many levels, all of us had to upskill the way we had to operate. And I think it really is now, we need to really use this opportunity at national levels to kind of drive that change and make that transition that typically governments like to move into a stepwise phase. Okay, first, national qualification framework change, then a technical vocational education change, and then if required, an occupational standard. I think they have to now directly transition towards an occupational standard framework. Otherwise, we'll again lose all this time and come back to the same situation where the technology has evolved, the market has evolved, but the capacity building has not really evolved.
Yeah, Jose, I wonder if I might also add there. I think this is where you see, in terms of that educational training format and programs, you know, there does need to be, I think, a closer integration with industry around vocational training and competence-based training. And I think one of the things that we see successful, I mean, there's lots of good examples in the automotive sector where that integration with higher education and those whom are effectively the industry providing the products are much more integrated. And I think we don't see that as closely as we can in the education training system that we have. But one thing that we always want to make sure is that there's a quality standard being performed alongside with that training. And I think that's where sometimes with vocational and private led training is that there's a demand in the market for that broader recognition. So I think these things go hand in hand, and they should and must evolve in that way, as you said.
Excellent, really good points. Yes.
Okay. So basically, like, I would just like to add to what has been said. So basically, like, what we found out in Argentina also, and even in Kenya, these trainings that are available, these TB trainings or whatever trainings that are available, they're also not like from local institutes. So they are also like foreign given trainings, and the problem that has is they're pretty expensive, and because they're very expensive, lot of people can have them. So unless they are part of like the regular curricula or the framework of education within the country, you are not going to produce energy efficiency professionals which are going to like supply or support the drive towards energy efficiency.
Okay. Got it. I'm trying to write as I go. Okay. I think this has been a really rich discussion. We've got a lot of good points to light. I'll ask you them afterwards for your key takeaways, but to make sure we have enough time to cover everything we've been asked to cover, I'd like to go on to question 3, which is what are the best practice examples, success models, and how could they be rolled out internationally? And I assume we're talking about programs about information, media training that are needed to deliver increased awareness, understanding of energy efficiency to consumers, and create competent professionals. That's the overall umbrella question that we have. So anyone want to have thoughts to share about what they think or they saw as good practice? I'm not sure there's best practice, but at least good practice and success models, and whether they can be rolled out internationally, or does it make sense to do a country-by-country approach? Who would like to go first? Ian?
Sure. So I again, from whole system building certification perspective, looking at what the European Building Directive did, on one hand, was to set the standard platform for implementation. And I think that's really critical, which then allowed for the national level across the European Union to be able to set against that what they anticipated to be their certification process, and build up around that those the professionals who would provide both certification, but then also work towards the improvement of the market and begin to use that as a ratcheting standard by which they could increase and expand the market. It hasn't, in some cases, and this is where you see the nationalization of that implementation, is that in some cases be very successful, like in Ireland, where on the certification side, they have some very high quality certification. And ironically, in Germany, where expected standards are always high, the actual roll up and implementation of the certification is probably less well embedded because of the fractious regionalized system that they have. So I think there's some good examples where you can see the right pieces and components are all there. Sometimes they're very highly aligned, and that's where the national setting is very important. And likewise, you can look to, say, Brazil, where Procel, as a standard label for products and for buildings, has really done well in terms of recognition. You know, what Mel was saying at the very beginning of the plenary around consumers recognizing that there's a thing, it tells them, it communicates to them, they can seek it. Now, the underside of that is that it has to be embedded in the professional practices that are going out there, and both on one hand building the products and on the other hand selling and commissioning the products. So I think this is really where best practice is, that there are hallmarks of having standardized approaches. Their implementing programs have bought into a broader stakeholder base, and then the ability to capitalize on their recognition and trust value is where you see those best features come forward.
Anyone else would like to talk about good practice, example, and success models? Ayman, did I see you lift your hand?
Yeah, thank you, Martina. Well, just to build on what mentioned by Ayan, I would like first to highlight the importance that we are talking here about the energy efficiency element within the service practicing and the refrigeration servicing sector. And this is a quite recent topic, meaning that it was not on the surface of the international agenda of associations or governments for so long. The energy efficiency in servicing sector is a quite recent topic. So we can give a lot of examples in relation to the refrigeration servicing sector, training and certification program in general, but the energy efficiency part in particular is a little bit recent compared to the rest of the sector. Having said so, I'm trying to build on our experience within UNEP in the implementation of the Montreal Protocol in particular over the last 3 decades, where we are working on more than 147 countries and with activities supported by the Multilateral Fund of Protocol Montreal to the servicing sector. One important thing that we learned that the carrot works better than the stick, meaning the servicing sector at the end, those who are at the level field level of the implementation, they will not be implementing these practices unless they think there is a benefit out for them. I'm talking here about both individuals and the corporates as well, meaning companies, servicing workshops, and etc. So unless we can highlight these benefits and the win-win value for doing such, or for taking into account such energy efficient practices, even if we get certified in, even if we put all the regulatory framework in place and enact them, nothing will happen in reality. I remember several cases I was personally engaged with technicians in the field. They told me the time I respond to another call is more important to me than doing recovery or checking the equipment operation. So I will do the work for you quickly and take another call. And if something happened, I will come to you again. So this mentality and the mindset cannot be changed unless there is a benefit to them. And this benefit can be only introduced by government. I'm talking here at the national level. If there's some kind of incentive program, like tax reduction for corporate, like a visibility or recognition program for individuals, in terms of special certification, in terms of special recognition, and so forth. In addition to the consumer awareness, where the people or the consumers and operators of the equipment need to feel the gain of energy saving, and they need to have the tools and the understanding how to monitor this with a basic and simple way, in a basic and simple way. I can give, you have asked about examples from the global ideas or programs. I can give some of the examples that we are doing globally to raise the awareness in this sector in particular. We have cooperated with ASHRAE in the last few years to build a special e-learning program for both refrigerant management and energy efficiency in refrigeration air conditioning. And those online programs are available with an international reputable certificate free of charge. And they can be taken by any individual, especially non-specialists. So people can go to the website of ASHRAE or UNEP and have access to these courses and get the certificate and build their awareness. At the same time, we are working with the large group of the international industry. Several are associations of the refrigeration air conditioning, but we are as the secretariat of this program with HRI in a program called Refrigerant Driving License. It's a simulation of the computer driving license that was developed a long time ago. And this is to try to build the knowledge and providing a qualification certificate that's approved by all the industry around the world. And this would be helping a lot the migrating working force, because people would like to have such a certificate where they can cross the border and work easily around, especially among the developing countries. Such programs can be a good example. Other tools can be also introduced, but we have two levels, as I mentioned, the national one and the global one.
Perfect. Alvin, you want to come in on this point? We can't hear you.
Just one point quickly, like one example, which I think can be beneficial, and I do see that we are a bit short on time. Ayman mentioned the carrot, so but maybe I can mention the stick. It's this very interesting initiative which the government of India had taken, was to create a pool of energy auditors and managers in the country. And the Bureau of Energy Efficiency under the Ministry of Power, what they did was that first they created a stick where they identified the large energy intensive industries as designated consumers. And under these national regulations, they were required to reduce their energy intensities, or at least they were required to keep energy managers and have periodic energy audits and reporting related kind of protocols. And automatically what that created was, because these industries such as cement, steel, aluminum, fertilizers, because they were like designated consumers, and then automatically they needed all these energy managers and energy auditors, then there was a demand. Then what the government of India did was that they started something called the National Energy Manager and Auditor Program, where they started a certification, basically an examination with certain criteria and everything. And they started to create this pool through that examination system to create a pool of energy managers, future energy managers and auditors. I think these are the kind of stick kind of approach that also countries can look into to make sure that a market is first created and a demand is created, and then to ensure that the correct kind of personnel is also then supplied into that market.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, I'm not sure where we are in time. Understand we have until 3:30 dinner time. Talat, did you want to come in?
No, just a small thing to add to what Elvin said. I think Kenya is also using what probably they're borrowing from India, the same approach, and they've created this need for energy managers in industries. But what is not following up is the supply of personnel who would support that and all. And like for the success stories, like I would just go a little broad also, like something like a transit-oriented development in transport, for example, and then that gets borrowed on like to other sectors and making transport quite energy efficient across the countries. But in transitioning of BRTS also from one place to another, like it was also it is one thing is technology, but with technology there has to be knowledge and other ancillary support and localization which is required actually. So it is not like one shoe fits all. So whenever you go from and if the learning has to happen, for example, when we look at Argentina, they have this 6 agroclimatic zones, but Europe also has plenty agroclimatic zones. So, for example, they could also learn that way also from Europe. Yeah.
Good point. The organizers are telling us that we have 5 minutes before we report back to plenary. So I'd like to ask you for your key takeaways on this broad topic of information and how to use information and basically training to improve energy efficiency and the link with jobs and training. If you had one recommendation and key takeaway, what would it be? Who wants to start? Talat, are we?
Yeah, maybe I can.
Okay.
Was it Talat?
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe just to keep a macro point is that I think if you really look at all the various kind of information, energy efficiency information programs and policies set around, it's kind of come to a stalemate at some point. And now I feel like with COVID, there's a renewed interest, at least in the end users, to reduce their energy consumption, to have more cost savings. Industries want to become more competitive in this new global economic environment. And to keep up the pace with that, I think we need to look into new methods of raising awareness. As Ian was mentioning, digitization is something that we can certainly look into. Mel was alluding to the use of QR codes for end users. And then to tie up all of this into and building the story of the standards and labeling, where minimum energy performance standards is on the rack, on the shelf, how we can ensure that stays for the product throughout its life. So this is something now I think we need to look into as we move into a new kind of post-COVID or ongoing COVID world as we speak. Yeah.
Great. So quickly, can I ask Talat to tell his quick comment?
So I think I would resonate with what Alvin has said. Like, information is key, and how the consumer gets information becomes very important, and for him to make a decision on to switch to a more energy efficient product also, it becomes very important for him. And secondly, like, uptake of these products need a lot of support, in terms of like financial support, also in terms of skills and knowledge support. Those things will also, like, whatever supports supporting infrastructure in terms of knowledge, skills, etc., will have to be put in to countries for them.
Good points. Ian, do you want to go? Or,
sure.
I
think the idea is, from my takeaway, is that you have these three. The adoption of a framework which has three parts. On one hand, high quality standards, the other being recognition within the field for the consumers and those producing those products, and then the third part around the support enabling mechanisms, whether that be through training or information and awareness. And that framework of adoption needs to be consistent in order to be applied successfully. And I think that it means that there's all parties who are going to be a part of that conversation, both governments, both regulatory bodies, and industry as a part of that. So I think that's really key.
I like that framework. Okay, and last but not least, Ayman, what are your quick takeaway recommendation from this session in 1 minute?
Okay, I agree and support all the ideas and recommendations by colleagues. And I would like to add two things. One related to the finding the right formula for building a win-win situation for the field practitioners in order to enforce and enact such practices. The second one is in line with the digitalization theme, which is a very important one in this era, is in addition to the product digitalization and monitoring of the performance, we need also to make sure that we are providing the knowledge and the information in different platforms. Nowadays, it's the conventional type of training is not the only option, and people are moving very quickly. Availability for face-to-face interventions is limited, and we need to have the mobile applications, the web applications, the different type of tools, also digitalize knowledge available in a more handy way. So this is also fit with the digitalization theme, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we're done with the session. I think it's been an incredibly rich discussion, and I see there's also good points on the chat, but we cannot take them. I hope the organizers of this session will plan to give a broader opportunity, because I think it's really important across countries, and really good suggestion. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do justice to the whole discussion, but thank you very much all to contribute to it. And I'm sure it's not the last time. I might follow up with you also on a professional level. And let's go back to
Hi, good to see you. So it looks like we've all made it, which is good. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this particular sessions on country voices. We've just had a great introduction by Mel Slade at the IEA on framing our sessions. By introduction, I'm Kevin Lane. I'm also at the International Energy Agency. I'm within the Energy Efficiency Division, and I've been working in product policy for the last 25, almost 30 years now. So this is all for my life as well. In front of you, you've got a great panelists. So just very briefly, we've got Abdulli Al Khalifa from Sudan, Mr. Jan Senya Delgado from Luxembourg, Monica Corbin from the VEF, the Green Climate Fund, and Herlianika from CLASP in Indonesia, and also Mr. Ridley Makaliki from ELA, part of the SACRI team. So welcome, and thank you very much for attending today. In terms of the way we'll run the session, I think we'll just have 3 questions, which are more to do around energy awareness, and then a little bit about training as well. So we'll try to split them into 3 questions, and we'll try and get those in the next 35 minutes or so. For those that are tuning in or on the side, please do add any comments in the audience to the session at the side. Just type in any questions you have. If we get time for them, we'll reply to those, but please let us know anything that you'd like to let VEF know as well. Please type it in there. Okay, so we've got 2 main questions. I guess the first one's going to be around awareness raising campaigns, and then the second 2/3 questions are going to be around training education systems. So the first question we have is, what are successfully implemented awareness raising campaigns in the country? So in your particular country or region, it would be just interesting to know if there's any successful examples you have of training, failing that, or maybe as part of that, even address the barriers or challenges to introducing that, and then also if there's any recommendations you have. So if you don't mind, I'll start with you, Abdullah, if that's okay. The floor's yours.
Which panelists?
Kevin, we cannot hear you actually. Sound is not coming. Maybe you have some problems with my hearing.
Yes. Sorry.
Kevin, I was asking, you started with which panelists?
Julie Al-Khalifa, so from the Sudan Electricity Authority. So I'll let you have the floor first to give us a bit of your experience, what you've done in terms of consumer awareness.
Okay. First of all, thank you for giving me this chance to be part of this very precious discussion. My name is Abdullahi from Sudan. I work for the Electricity Regulatory Authority. And you're my coach, Kevin, by the way, in IEA training course in South Africa at the time.
I do remember.
Yeah. So actually, Sudan is very junior in the field of energy efficiency. So in the practical experience, we don't have too much to share, but we can share what we are planning to do and from the lesson that we learned from surrounding countries or whatever, the people who are proceeding in the field of energy efficiency. So everyone is agreeing on the awareness building that is one of the pillars of the energy efficiency, and without which the energy efficiency cannot work at all. And the main person that we are targeting in this awareness building, definitely there are many partners and stakeholders in this matter, but the main partner is the consumer himself. So there is traders, the manufacturers, there is policymakers whatsoever, but the main person is the consumer. She or he, we should target him, and the main matter that helps in this overall process is the energy label. I see it as a very important part through which the consumer can select and choose the proper product in terms of energy efficiency. And according to my limited experience in this field and energy label that I have passed through, I can see it is not well informing, especially in the case of our country. Here we have very high illiteracy. So many people are uneducated. I need them to go to the market. By default, choose the proper product. And what I see here commonly, so many designs that you have presented there in South Africa, Kevin, for us, and I have learned so many after that. I see this is totally not perfectly working for us. I cannot say that totally not working, but I can say that it's not perfectly matching our case, since the consumer have less education and they cannot easily choose the product based on this energy label with the current design. So we try to use an innovative design during our process. Now we are actually establishing the energy efficiency studies. Right now, we are making the market assessment, followed by maps and then labels after that. So we think that in our label design, we should use the sign language, which is commonly known by everyone who is educated or not. Even if it is written with a different language that you cannot even read, you can figure out what does it mean. So, and we propose the design that I have presented in South Africa. If you remember, Kevin, this design that we are proposing to use this hand pump up. So it actually tells easily to the consumer that you can easily figure out which product is good. But if I keep some bars today before this session, I had done some small questionnaire asking some people. You figure out, I gave them the regular design, a traditional design of the label, asking, do you know what is this? The answer is no, that we cannot figure out unless they read closely that, okay, I think this is this and this. But when I show them this directly, even without keeping any written text here that you are saying this product is the best and this is the lowest, and this is pointing directly on the chosen product. So I guess this descriptive type of design would totally help. And currently we are carrying this type of studies. And when we come to the conclusion, definitely I will share it with you all. And I hope it works for us. So I see the awareness building is very crucial. And one of the main pillars of this awareness building is the energy label, and it should be developed in its design so that it can compensate for the deficiencies that happen with the traditional designs, that is commonly bars and stars mostly. And also, time is up for me, or I still have some time, Kevin? Okay, so now currently, actually, also we have a problem in Sudan that the technicians who are installing these devices are also illiterate. So we are trying to gather some database right now in order to raise the awareness of the technicians, because they're a main reference for the people who are buying the products. Commonly, people will find an electrician, okay, we want to buy an AC, so please help us. So you choose this brand, this is good, this is bad. So these people are completely close to the market. So when the consumer console them in buying the products, and if they're well aware about the labels and what is energy efficiency, definitely they will help us to promote the energy efficiency knowledge, as well as I have mentioned, that we have very high illiteracy. So also we are targeting to approach homes in order to educate the people to learn this energy efficiency.
But I will put it.
Sorry. So we will try to approach homes and mothers even to educate them through the knowledge, and for this we will hire women or girls, ladies, whatsoever, to approach homes in order to raise the awareness directly to homes, and as well as we will approach the schools, because for the case that illiterate families or parents, if I raise up the kids, especially in the last stages of the schools, that the people who are passing to the university, there will be a very good reference for the families in terms of the charges of electrical appliances. So if I educate the people in the school, and this will be very easy for us because the schools are organizations, and we can directly approach the organization during the working hours and educate them about the energy labels and what is MAPS and what is energy efficiency, so they can easily reflect these matters to the homes and help the family to choose properly the efficient products. Thank you.
Very much for that. So that's talking a little bit about the consumer awareness, and actually also starting to go towards how we're going to train the population as well. I'd next like to move to Jansenio Delgado, just to give us a brief overview of your experience in terms of raising awareness or awareness campaigns that you've come across. And maybe you can touch on the second question a bit if we're going to run out of time, then maybe a little bit about formalizing education for technicians as well, just any experience that you have on that, challenges and recommendations. I think you're still on mute. We can't hear you at the moment. No, we can't hear you. Okay, that's better.
So you didn't hear anything?
We haven't heard anything, so back to the start, I'm afraid. So yeah, just your some experiences you've had from consumer awareness campaigns, and maybe even a little bit about training in technicians as well.
Okay, so let me start by saying that I'm here not on behalf of LuxDev, the organization I'm working for, but just as a Verdun expert on this issue. And then, so the opinions I can give here is they are personal opinions, not from my institution. So I would like to start by just doing a short introduction on where we are in terms of developing regional and national concrete actions to reduce the existing gap between the developed and the developing countries. Because I believe that more than give some numbers in terms of awareness raising, it's important to discuss the path away to achieve concrete objectives with impact in the improvement of life condition of the people, especially in Africa and Asia. So, Sustainable Development Goal number 7 aims to ensure that every individual should have access to modern and clean and affordable energy. We are in 2020. More than 860 million people are still without access to energy. So I believe we are very far from the objectives or the sustainable goal has put in place. Developed countries are the biggest contributor for the global pollution and climate change, but the developing countries, the poor countries are more affected by the climate change effects. Taking specifically the region Cape Verde is part, the ECOWAS region, 15 countries community with more than 300 million people, with more than 50% of population without access to electricity. We are talking about a region where the government put in place the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, with one of the big objectives to mitigate the existing barriers to access to modern and affordable source of energy. In 2012, the ECRI developed the so-called energy policy, energy efficiency, and renewable energy policies, with very clear targets for 2020 and 2030. And one of the clear targets for energy efficiency was to phase out the incandescent lamp by 2020, was to ensure the entire population have access to efficient, sustainable, and modern cooking fuel and equipment by 2030, reduce average losses in the electricity sector, and so on. And my question is, where we are in 2020 in terms of achieving these goals, these objectives that were established in 2012. And so I believe we are still far from where the objectives are established. Going specifically to the question, I would say that Cabo Verde is making its way toward the development of energy efficiency and renewable energy. The first step, I think, is the access to energy. You cannot talk about energy efficiency when you don't have access to energy. So this is achieved basically because now we have around 95% of access to electricity at least. And the awareness raising campaign, the government and the system, I would say, is implementing, is basically make the consumer and the people understand the importance of energy efficiency for the country. It's not only a question of climate change conservation, climate conservation. It's a question also of financial and sustainability of the energy sector for our country. So this is energy efficiency is an extremely important topic for an island country like Cabo Verde. Finally, I would like to say that the country has done a lot in terms of awareness raising, but a lot more have to be done in the future, taking in consideration the real impact of the energy efficiency in the overall sustainable energy sector in our country. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delgado. So we have maybe 20 minutes, so maybe we'll try to conflate some and keep our messages focused on consumer awareness and also on on sector technicians as well. So I'll hand over to Monica Goldberg now from the Green Climate Fund and just ask for a little bit of your experience on consumer awareness, but also some of the capacity building issues as well. So I'll hand the floor over to you, Monica, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin, and all the others listening. I will start to say, like Hans Benio said, that at the Green Climate Fund, we still haven't so much experience of implementation of energy efficiency by appliances projects. So what I'm going to tell you now is not from the Green Climate Fund, it's from previous projects. And you are asking about successful information campaigns. One of the more successful campaigns that I've experienced is we arranged together with the national utility in Tanzania and the small industrial development organization in Tanzania. We arranged demonstration of energy efficient products in the field together with specific branches of small and medium-sized enterprises. One of the most notable reactions, or what can I say, the experiences was regarding welding. Welding machines in rural areas in Tanzania, sometime back 15 years, probably still, are to a large extent handmade. They work fine, but they consume an extreme amount of current and power over time compared to a manufactured welding machine. So what we did, we engaged professional welders to try the different machines. And we had the utility measure power consumption during this session, and then we had a real-time discussion about concept. And I must say, welders overall were very, very interested in understanding this difference. Some of the local manufacturers were very upset with us because we brought in a new machine that was apparently, we were trying to say that this machine is better than yours, and they were someone coming from abroad with another machine. But then time they wanted to learn more about the features of the and how to actually manufacture such a more energy efficient machine than the ones that they had currently manufactured. So I would say it was really successful because it really opened the eye. Another example was a wooden, I can say, a furniture manufacturer. And we measured the energy and we looked at the motors she had. This was a woman, she had a number of motors for manufacturing processes. And we measured the energy and we compared different motors. And after the time she said, "Oh, but you are earning more money on my business than I am doing myself," talking to the energy utility. "You're getting so much paid from my business here because I'm paying you for so much abundant energy. Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" So that was really also very illustrative when she realized how she could turn up her cost, her manufacturing cost by changing motor. So I just touched a little bit on the second question to take time, because I think apart from the appliances and the equipment, like the motor in this case, it's also important to reach out to branches, like different types of manufacturers and small industries, and discuss not only the equipment, but also the installation of the equipment, the management, maintenance, and even if you have very energy efficient motor, if you don't stretch the power, what do you call it, the driving line, you will still not have an energy efficient process. So you have to have, apart from the equipment, you also have to have an understanding of the process, how you can manage your load. Maybe you can have some load shedding at your little factory to make sure that you don't trip the capacity and such things. So that's my take on how you reach out to technicians. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that intervention, Monica. And yeah, so quite a nice example that of using demonstration programs to try and increase energy efficiency. And yeah, quite right, it is quite problematic sometimes to have imported technologies coming in, and you want to try and protect the local manufacturing as well. So that's clearly one concern. So thank you. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Herli and Nika in Indonesia. So I'll just ask you briefly, just to give you a very brief overview of some of the consumer awareness programs, but then also maybe touch more on the capacity building that you have. So whether that's on the installation and maintenance, say, of AC equipment, perhaps, or just any experience that you have that I think it's worth relaying, and then perhaps for recommendations that we could have for VEF as well.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Hi, everybody. I'm Herlin from Indonesia. As Kevin mentioned, I'm working with clubs now, but I also working with UNEP for National Cooling Action Plan, developing National Cooling Action Plan. I just started in Indonesia today, but it is a great opportunity for me to share with you my experience in Indonesia about how we campaign the energy efficiency appliances. What is a successfully implemented awareness raising campaign here in Indonesia? I think people here have high level awareness actually for about energy consumption already in the certain level that already use electricity without subsidy from government. So from 1,030 kilowatt hour per. They don't have any subsidy from government anymore, and they are very aware with the energy consumption. But still, Indonesia just started with to expand wide range of appliances labeling. Indonesia has two labeling regulation already for CFL and for AC split, but the MAPS level is still very low because at the time we don't have any data to establish the MAPS level yet. But now we just start with higher level, and will be revised in every 2 years with the level the same level with the ASEAN harmonization. This is for labeling. So Indonesia still needs support from everybody. The government still needs support from everybody to adjust the MAPS level for these appliances. However, we need any additional studies, any additional technology roadmap to be the base of the regulation that has to be revised in every 2 years. Indonesia now in 2020 next year we'll start with 10 appliances for labeling. So I think Indonesia has successfully implemented campaigns of energy efficiency. We just started, and hoping every 2 years we can see the impact for about this labeling. For example, in AC split, people are already aware of energy performance because people who buy an AC split only the user that don't get any subsidy from government. So they are very aware of the energy consumption, but still we need to adjust the level of AC split. Regarding the capacity building, what we already have here in Indonesia, we have national structure mechanism about the competencies, technician competencies regarding how they have to install and they have to do maintenance and operation for the technician. We call it as national skill competencies standard. Yeah, so every technician should have a certain certificate for level 1 to level 3, still level 1 until level 3 for maintenance, for servicing, and for certain activity on the AC installation and maintenance. It is already national standard structured under the law. Yeah, and they will get formal certificate. And how if we talk about how the vocational education can successfully have a cooperation with private sector, we do government push the vocational to have a program so-called pre-employment card program. So every fresh graduated student from vocational school has to have this pre-employment card program. This is one program from government, and another program is about internship program. So every vocational school has a cooperation with private sector to do the intern program for 3 months or 6 months. and also the private sector give like a scholarship for employee or for students to have a certification. So they pay, the private sector pay for the certification. That's what have been done in Indonesia. So Indonesia for AC split has already structured skill competencies for technician, level 1 until level 3 for the technician, and we are developing for another 2 levels until levels 5. Yeah, for capacity building. So it is structured not only in the curricula of education, formal education in the vocational school, also in polytechnic, but we also establish the professional certification body. In Indonesia, we already set that scheme. Maybe it is short, but I think yeah, it is clear enough that Indonesia has a clear roadmap on energy efficiency, but still we need support from everybody to set the maps level. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Helen. So it's a good overview of some of the good programs that already started happening in Indonesia, but then also quite interesting some of these success stories in terms of private sector engagement with some of the training programs are also quite good success stories as well. Got one more intervention that I'd like to do. Then at the end, I'd like to leave just 1 minute for everyone to have just what would be your key recommendations to increase capacity building or consumer awareness. But we'll come back to that. So you just got 1 minute to what we would like to feed back to VEF in terms of that. But before then, I'd like to give Reedley about 5 minutes just to go over what's his experience in terms of the ELA and SACRI in terms of consumer awareness, but then also the capacity building aspect. So Reedley, the floor is yours. So please give us your experience.
Thank you very much, Kevin. My name is Reedley Makaliki from Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency in Windhoek, Namibia. And I'm the lead technical expert on the Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances project, a project that is sponsored by the Swedish government, implemented by UNIDO, and our 2 centers in SADC and ESC, SACRI and IACRI respectively being the executing centers. But before I come to the ELA project, in terms of awareness raising, I'll start with the experience I had whilst working with a utility. So awareness raising addresses knowledge of individuals and organizations with the ultimate aim of having long-lasting behavioral change. So during the 2007-2008, within the Southern African power pool region, we faced a deficit in terms of generation. To embark on some energy efficient activities. So various on-site management departments were formed in these utilities to look at one, how they can address the deficit of generation by reduction of the load on the system. Several utilities embarked on the exchange programs for inefficient lighting into efficient lighting. And various messages were created to make the end user, the customer, aware about the activities that these utilities were doing towards energy efficiency. And I'll cite examples from ESCOM in South Africa on the Power Alert program. I think this is the program that was aired on TV to alert customers on how the system was performing and request them to switch off unnecessary loads and embark on various, I think, conservation measures. This program was also undertaken by ZESCO, also on the Power Alert program. They also partnered with advertising companies and put up very interesting videos which can be accessed on their website, which sensitized consumers about inefficient use of products. To go further, I think in terms of raising awareness, you need to categorize your message according to the various audiences you are addressing. And these were done according, I think, to the various customer categories. Take, for example, in terms of public awareness, for the case of ZESCO, the demand side management department that was formed started carrying out free energy audits for the industries. They could go around the industry and identify energy saving opportunities and write to the industries a report for them to embark on those energy efficiency activities. We also had demonstration kits in that during the various events that we held or that are observed internationally, like the Energy Week, Earth Hour, we could go out in places where the public is found, like commercial malls, with this demonstration equipment. We had demonstration equipment that showed how the incandescent bulb compared to an LED or CFL consume power. We were using electromagnetic meters with a disc that was rotating at the rate that was commensurate to the power that was being consumed. So for the incandescent, the rate of rotation was quite high compared to that of the CFL and compared to that of the LED. Also, in terms of, that was a demonstration kit targeted at domestic customers as well as the commercial entity in terms of lighting. For the industry, we know that the workhorse of the industry is the induction motor. And if these motors are not efficient, then you end up paying high in terms of energy bills. So we also had the demonstration equipment, which was mimicking power factor correction. So we could go out with this equipment in these events like Energy Week, Earth Hour, as well as when the actual energy audits were being done at large energy consuming companies. We would go with this equipment also to sensitize the industry about the need to embark on energy efficiency. So those are quite some of the programs that I can highlight that have been implemented in the SADC regions regarding awareness. But coming to the ELA, we also have, I think, we also have a series of interactive webinars that we have scheduled between September and December. The last one we had on 4th December, on which we were sensitizing our stakeholders in the member states, including policymakers, experts in certain fields like cooling appliances, lighting. The 4 series webinar we had, one was looking at policy, how you can set policy as well as minimum energy performance standards in order to protect your market from inefficient products coming into it. The next one, we looked at private sector involvement in the energy efficient. I think there are opportunities for job creation, especially if you are migrating towards producing energy efficient equipment and discarding the inefficient products. Then we also looked at putting a gender lens on the ELA, energy efficient lighting and appliances. And by this, we were enticing, I think, to bring women folk to participate in this portion of the agency. The last one we had monitoring, application and enforcement, which is important. Once you have set the maps, you need to monitor the market to ensure that only the efficient products are coming onto the market. Regarding training, like was mentioned in the plenary, we have what we call ELA focal persons on the project. And these are the ones we communicate through if we have information from the project. And if we need to get information from the member states, we go through the same channel. So we are targeted to some training in October 2019. on which our ELA focal persons attended the module that was looking at the policy as regards appliances and equipment. Further, as we go along, I think for the monitoring and verification, as well as facilitating for testing, we are looking at capacity building for our lab technicians in the various standard bodies within the 21 member states. Initially, without COVID, we had planned to have this capacity building program done in June 2020, but due to COVID, we have embarked on now developing an e-learning course. This e-learning course now will incorporate various modules apart from just the technical aspects, which will now be available for a wider stakeholder group. But our key focus would be on training what we are calling a core group, which will act as the change agents in the 21 member states to transition to energy efficiency. Another program we are embarking on as SACRI is the solar thermal training, where various technicians from the time the program was started, about 3,000, have been trained in terms of the installation of renewable energy equipment, as well as on the maintenance aspects relating to solar thermal.
I think it's some very good experiences in there, certainly demonstration programs again, but this e-learning course I think is actually quite an exciting one as well. I'm sorry to have to rush you, but what I'd like to do is just please each of you just give me one recommendation that you think we should feed back to the main session as well. I'd be curious if you have one recommendation, what that would be. So Abdullahi Al Khalifa, please, you have 30 seconds to quickly tell me what you think would be your recommendation for capacity building or consumer awareness. Yep, you're okay now.
Yeah, now you can hear me. Yeah, the main recommendation, according to our limited experience, I have mentioned before that we are having just junior studies in this regard. So, but I recommend the redesign of the energy label to be very informative for the people who are illiterate, who are not even knowing the language of the country whatsoever. It should be fully informing design, even without keeping any text. It should be well informing that this is the best product to buy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for that. Monica, your one recommendation, please.
Yeah, my recommendation is to pay a lot of attention to the customer's situation. What are the incentives? Is it because it's cheaper? Is it because it's, or is it for the good of the planet? Or is it for your own, your own household economy? You have to find these arguments to really make people opt for the energy efficient solution, and also tell them how to do. I mean, once you realize that you would like to select an energy efficient product, you also have to have a bit of a recommendation on how to do. If you have a labeling system, that's excellent. But if you don't have a labeling system, how do you recommend your customers to do the choice? That's very essential in the information.
Yep, perfect. Thank you very much, Monica. Mr. Delgado, if you've got 20 seconds, if we have one recommendation, what would it be?
Okay, thank you. So my recommendation would be just to promote joint effort from national to international organization to implement global energy efficiency actions, particularly in developing countries, and included awareness raising campaign to demonstrate the real effect of the energy efficiency actions in our overall energy system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that brief introduction. Helene, 20 seconds as well. What's your main recommendation?
Thank you. Actually, echoing from Abdullahi and Monica, actually, This is the essential and very important for the capacity building, how we have to design the labels and how we deliver the true energy efficiency objective actually. And one additional recommendation from me, and that will be implemented in Indonesia also. This public awareness can be the joint program between government, donors, and also private sector. We will be together to do this public awareness designing and everything to the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we might have to jump back to the main session. So yeah, apologies for not getting your final comment in. What we'll do is we'll go back to the main plenary session. If you don't know how to do that, please click on the series button to the left and you'll go back into the main panel room. I'd just like to thank all the panelists as well for providing their time and also giving your great insight. We might follow up with further questions, or please do give us further thoughts and feedback to the Vienna Energy Forum as well. So thank you, and we'll see you back in the other room.
Great, thank you. Let's get started. So just for everyone joining us, this is the Enablers for Progress group. I am Ana Maria Carreño from class. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm pleased to be here with you. I'm pleased to have amazing set of panelists with us. As introduced by our speakers at the beginning, the goal of this session is to explore opportunities to create awareness on energy efficiency as a key mechanism to achieve climate goals and other benefits. And the theme specifically of this working group is going to be what information, media, and training are needed to deliver increased awareness and understanding of energy efficiency to consumers and to create competent professionals. So we'll be hearing from our panelists today, where I'm going to be asking a set of questions. The audience can also type in questions or inputs through the chat as well. We will have approximately, I believe, 50 minutes. I think we have to get back at 9:10. So let me start by introducing our panelists. We have Kofi Agiarko, who is Director of Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency, and Climate Change at the Ghana Energy Commission. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kofi. We have Nihar Shah, Deputy Head, International Energy Analyst Department, Presidential Director of the Global Cooling Efficiency Program, and co-leader of the Emerging Economies Program at Berkeley Lab. Welcome, Nihar. We have Mi Ton, an expert in energy efficient technologies, policies, and programs at Econolair. So good to have you with us, Mi. And we have Noé Villegas, who is Director of Large Energy Users at the National Commission for the Efficient Use of Energy, CONUE, in Mexico. Thank you for joining us, Noé.
Good to meet you, Noé.
So let's get started. The first question for our panelists is, how can a strong standards and labeling program enhance awareness and stimulate progress towards the uptake of efficient products? So let me start probably with Kofi, and then we'll go around the table to hear our speakers' perspectives about this.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. And I'm going to address this question from the point of view of somebody coming from a developing world. For me, standards and labeling program is strong to the extent that it is able to meet its objectives. And meeting the objective of standards and labeling are two-pronged approach. First, the communication must be effective, and secondly, there should be incentives to ensure market uptake. I want to dilate on the effective communication. The communication must be effective, and these are the ingredients of effective communication. The message must be simple, simplicity, concise, straight to the point, and well targeted. Then number two, the benefit that the individual is going to be derived from the program must be explicit and clear. Savings and payback. Then you talk of the mode of communicating. look at your target audience, and then you determine which mode to use. Are you going to use jingles, animation, television, sitcoms, flyers, or whatever? That needs to be given a critical attention to. And then incentives. You see, you can have availability, but affordability becomes a barrier. So once you give out a good message there, then the people need to be incentivized to be able to cross the barrier of affordability. So that needs to be looked at. And what I want to say in this, there is a pitfall. That pitfall here is that the message should be devoid of jargons. The kilowatt, the megawatt, the gigawatt, whatever. To the ordinary person, this is noise in the ears. So it should be very, very elementary, basic. And first, you target the individual. Second, the economy. And third, the environment. That is how it works. If you turn it the other way around, we are bound to fail. You don't talk of environment, you don't talk of economy before you come to talk about the individual. Get the individual first convinced, and then you talk about the economy. Do comparative analysis. If we save this amount of money, it is capable of building 1 hospital or 2 schools or this, that. That is how you appeal to the individual before you talk about the environment. Because if somebody is hungry, you don't talk about the environment. So in conclusion, the strength of standards and labeling is meaningless unless it has the legs that can carry it to its destination. And the legs here are message and incentive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kofi, for that masterclass on effective communication in a couple of minutes. It's truly what we needed to hear. Let me go back to me. Maybe you would like to continue.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Yeah, so I'll deal with it on a sort of a nuts and bolts scale. So we all know that the Strong Standards and Label program has many benefits, and usually we focus only on the energy benefits. But I think there are also, obviously for the energy savings goals, but there are other benefits that we don't focus on, but also deserve the same attention. Performance improvements, product quality, those are the things that standards and label can also help to address. So, we all know that standards sets the floor, and so allows manufacturers to move away from this race of price. And if you have price, you have an issue of racing to the bottom in terms of quality, right? So if they don't have a standard, they're all competing on price, they're all going to try and produce the cheapest products. But the standards help us address some of those issues. So the more progressive and aggressive suppliers, they compete on things like performance, they compete on features and other characteristics that are usually not present if they're forced to compete on price. So this creates room for suppliers to do more education and outreach. Many suppliers indicate on their advertising that they meet Energy Star or other labeling requirements in their advertisement, and that helps the communications and outreach. And then, in terms of improving the product quality, they help improve the quality directly, as in lighting products, because they have to meet CRI, or they have to meet the right claims for color temperature, for example. Also indirectly, they have to meet qualities like clothes washers have to clean, dishwashers have to clean. So they don't just save energy or water, but they actually have to deliver some performance. So all of those things help really to give us other ways to improve communications and outreach. So it helps, the awareness raising for energy efficiency. And I'll end with this, which is that, I see that Mel is here, and she would, of course, hopefully agree with me, because one of the hardest lessons that we've learned in communications and outreach is an awareness raising is that the lessons that we learned with CFLs. In the early days, we didn't promote sufficiently with quality. So, we didn't address issues that we thought would be secondary, like warm up time or CRI. And so what happened is that we ended up with fairly poorly performing CFLs. And so CFL suffered, but by association, energy efficiency also suffered, in the communications outreach and progress towards uptake. So it is, I'll end that. It is easier to promote high performance and good quality products that are also energy efficient than the other way around, which is to promote shoddy products that might save a little bit of energy. So.
Thank you, May. I think that was a great example of some of the challenges facing energy efficiency programs and the fact or the lack of an effective communication that can jeopardize overall moving or promoting energy efficiency products, such as the case in lighting. Mihai, it would be great to hear from you, maybe some examples or best practices from your experience on this.
Sure, thank you. Let me pick up on the point that Kofi made around simplicity. So essentially, one way to ensure that consumers aren't confused is to, for example, unify product categories. We've done some of this work, I think, together also in India in 2016, where we combined fixed speed and variable speed air conditioner product categories, and similarly in China. Now, what that does is it ensures that products that are essentially performing the same service, the consumer can see clearly where the energy savings are and which products are giving the energy savings. And so similarly, that kind of, and there's other examples. You can see, for example, electric resistance water heaters and electric heat pump water heaters. If you combine product categories there, for example, you might also see a similar savings reflected in the, excuse me, in the in the product label. And so that's an example of where you might actually also see the labeling program reduce the prices of the more efficient appliances, because the scale of production of the more efficient appliances would become higher, because more consumers are able to buy the more efficient appliance because the energy savings. So there's also a stack-on effect of these different pieces of consumer awareness leading to more consumers buying the more efficient product, and then the prices of the more efficient product coming down, and therefore there being a virtuous cycle in that regard.
Thank you, Nihar. I think that ties well with one of points Kofi made about incentives and how to improve affordability. So we are making the connection that by improving communications, by promoting the uptake of those half-efficient technologies, we'll be able to improve affordability as well. Noé, back to you.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Super. I want to go a step back on these issues, and first for us here in Mexico, it's really important to understand what happened at home with the people, because it's come this energy paradox. The people want more cheap energy. They don't want to pay really high, expensive costs of the energy. And what happened with the governments? The governments need to subsidize that price of the energy. And that's really complicated, because maybe the governments need that money not to subsidize the energy. Maybe they use that money to another important things like health, security, etc. So what we can do on that point, and maybe the first step is to make more cheaper the energy services that you need at home. And there is key on this, the energy efficiency standards and the labeling, because we need to make cheaper the use of the energy in the fridge, in the air conditioner, in the wash machine, etc. That is the key point, because then come this energy paradox. The normal people, maybe we are experts and we have conscious on this, but the normal people, Sunday night football team, what do you want? A cold drink. And you don't think what is behind that you get that cold drink, the generation, all the machines, blah, blah, blah. No, they want only the cold drink, So how we can do that and support and make more strong the energy efficiency are two big actions. Of course, strong energy standards programs in the countries, but then come the sensibilization, the behavior change, because it's not enough to have energy efficiency products at home, and you can use, for example, lighting. Now you can change all your lamps, bulbs, from bulbs to LED technology. Okay, that's true, but that's not allowed to you to use 20 hours for all the day with the lamps on. You know, is the products and how we use that product. So it's really important to make, for example, strong programs, laws that allow us to make these programs, and of course, national consultant committees, all the stakeholders involved in this process that send a basis, the base of a policy, national policy on these topics. I believe that we need to think about it to start to make the solution.
Thank you, Noé. And just to underline a point that you mentioned about sensibilization and using the right message and the right information that consumers care about. And that's also something that Kofi mentioned at the beginning. Yeah. The right message, what do they care, payback periods, what do they care, savings. So important when you're designing communications strategies. So we cover a little bit about the communications and individual aspect. I think the next portion of the discussion, we're going to move to the financial sector. So the question for our panelists is, what are good examples or practices to strengthen the capacity of the financial sector with regards to energy efficiency financing and risk evaluation? Maybe, Noé, would you like to start?
Yeah,
continuing on?
Thank you, Anna. Yes, this is a complicated issue on this, because here in Mexico and Latin American countries, it's really normal to know that there is no money to make energy efficiency projects. Because there is not important, especially in the industrial sector, the most priority is the production and not maybe maintenance for the production, but not make energy efficiency projects. But some years ago, I was in a financing energy efficiency forum, and I hear that it's not true that there is no money to make or to finance in these projects on energy efficiency. The problem is that we cannot, the experts that we implementing these projects, we cannot get a big pool of projects to seek that financing. I believe that the banks are not interested to financing 1 or 2 projects, individual projects. They want to get 1,000 projects, and it's interesting to them to financing that. So that is the problem. The problem is that it's not money. The problem is that we cannot get that. So secondly, in Mexico and developing countries, we have 30 years making projects with developing money from the developing bank, but we need to pass to first floor bank to financing these projects. And how we can get that? We need to bring technical certainty for the projects. And how we can explain to the financial people that digitalization, for example, Industry 4.0, for example, energy management systems, MRV process, and they need to understand how is going that to bring this technical certainty to financing the projects.
Thank you, Noé. So maybe I'll ask other speakers if they have examples on how to bring the scale that banks are asking for and that technical certainty that Noé talked about. Mihar, and then
yeah, so there's two, one in the public sector and one in the private sector. I think public sector, you can see, for example, public procurement programs that have a specification that's set at a particularly high level, but also that brings the government I guess benefits in terms of the energy savings, but also the government tends to be a large procurer of some of these appliances, and so they can also take the risk, I think, on the front end, particularly when they've done the research and know that the appliance works well. They can take the risk that the individual consumer might not be willing to take. And so that might be one way to scale up and de-risk the investment. On the private sector side, you might have a thing called a buyer's club, where essentially you get a bunch of people that are anyway buying those products, maybe large corporates and so on. So like you can have, for example, all the Coca-Cola and Pepsi people get together and buy vending machines together, right? And you can have a large, kind of order that goes to the manufacturers to buy the more efficient appliance that provides the manufacturer and therefore the bank as well the certainty that there is this product that's out there and that can be financed relatively easily.
Thank you, Nihar. Kofi?
Yes. You see, for the banks, it is an unknown area, just as the previous speakers have stated. So it amounts to charting and uncharted waters. And to be able to do that, you need to assure them that the perceived risk is not as huge as they say it from their end, because banks in our part of the world are interested in financing importation of rice, clothing, and all that, but not the energy efficiency space. So what we did here was that we decided to deliberately and consciously bait the banks and then educate them. So for all the workshops and seminars, we bring them on board, and then what we do is that as we speak, I have slides that have simple payback calculations on energy efficiency investment ventures. So they sit down there, and then pictorially they are able to appreciate that after all, it is not as risky as they see it from where they sit. And the outcome of that is that between 10 years, we have...
Did we just lose Kofi?
I believe we just lost Kofi. Maybe we'll give him a couple of minutes to get back. I don't know, me if you want to go next. And I will ask the Estefania, maybe if she can reach out to Kofi to see if we can get him back.
All right, so I'll go, but yeah, I don't want to jump in front of Kofi there. So, I mean, the financial sector is general risk averse, right? So they don't want to finance projects that involves like emerging products, which is a lot of the energy efficiency products tend to be, right? Or some of the energy efficiency products that we promote tend to sometimes have a longer return periods. So those are sort of not in their portfolio, in their interests. Where there's energy cost is high, then programs might be what they're called bankable. So then the banks, the financial sector might be more interested because the return is faster or whatever. But so yeah, so the mean, as Kofi said, there's got to be a mean to reduce risk. And I'm not a financial person, so I can only speak in general terms. There are some consumer level type banking programs such as home loans or appliance financing, but I haven't been working in those for a while. So I've been working on more large scale programs like street lighting or building modernization. So I'll speak a little bit more to those programs. So in terms of those, there's a number of examples of financing, right? One is to have a dedicated financing facility. In India, for example, right? So they have a super ESCO, the Super Energy Services Company, EESL, Energy Efficiency Limited. They are implementing the world's largest energy efficiency portfolio across sectors like street lighting, like building modernization, electric vehicles, smart metering. So they have working on that scale. So basically what India has done is that they changed the financial sector by having somebody on their side. They're removing that risk by having an organization that's more experienced in energy efficiency and promoting energy efficiency programs. So they're reducing the risk by bringing more experience and access to that sector. sector. So that's but the ESCO model is used in a number of other public sector projects. Ones that I'm very familiar with are modernizing street lighting and modernizing building to make them more efficient. I'm working on a project with the Asian Development Bank in Vietnam to help improve the ESCO model and industry in Vietnam. So, and we're working at the municipal level. So for this, we're working to build the municipal capacity. We're helping them to do things like how to do energy audits, to develop feasibility studies, to procure equipment, to tools on how to evaluate projects. So all of these help set, basically, because in the financial sector, when you do an energy efficient project, there is no precedent. So there's no track record. So that's deemed as high risk. Okay. So if you can set things up to reduce the risk, to set the sector, to build the capacity, then you reduce the perceived risk in the financial sector. So all of these things will help to, reduce risk. And also the other thing that it does is brings access to financing, which is the other issue, because that's the problem, is that in the public sector, when they do a project, it's perceived risk. Then they go to the bank. The banks don't want to loan them the money. They have no other way. So if there's other ways to reduce risk or bring the finance access, ADB is doing these projects and providing low-cost loans for municipalities to help set the track record. So all of these build the capacity and help promote energy efficiency, but it has to be on a large-scale level. I think at the appliance level, I'm not dealing with those programs, and it's been a while, so I can't really speak to have that to more experience. So I see that Kofi's back. So Kofi, I will yield the floor to you.
Maybe before we go up, just to thank you, for that example on ESL. I believe that model can also apply for appliances. And in fact, ESL launched a major LED replacement program using some of the components that Nihar mentioned about bulk procurement in order to reduce price. So I think it is very relevant as well for the appliance sector. Glad to have you back, Kofi. I'm sorry that we lost you in the middle of your intervention. So if you don't mind, maybe we can take it from where you left.
Sorry to the audience. The internet got me deflated. I was trying to put these thoughts together that by consciously bringing the financial institutions around seminars and workshops and treating them to the real case as exists in the market, it kind of helped them to allay their fears about the unknown field that you want them to venture into. And the case in point is EcoBank. In 2011, when we launched the energy efficient refrigerator scheme, EcoBank came on board. Although they did not do so much well, yet because of their association with the Energy Commission and Ghana on a green development agenda, it kind of, polish their image internationally. And I can tell you now, we have more than 5 commercial banks that have energy desks, if not energy departments, situated in the banks. And interestingly now, they come chasing us, asking whether there are new projects and programs coming up or not. Previously, we were going to them, but now they are coming to us. So in terms of capacity building, bring them around you, help them out. And then you use this psychological means to tackle them to get very high on energy efficiency matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Kofi. I think what we heard from our panelists were some of the challenges related to the financing sector and some good examples. Very glad to be able to share that with the audience. Let's move on to the next topic. We are talking about laboratory capacity. So the question for the panelists is, what are successful programs to increase the capacity of national and regional testing centers or laboratories, and how can enforcement be strengthened by raising awareness and capacity of customs control? Kofi, I don't know if you want to start with this as well. given that you have a lot
Yes.
of experience in Ghana.
You're getting
let me
paid.
leave.
Yes.
Let me leave the capacity burden to my other colleagues and tackle enforcement with the customs. Without robust enforcement, forget about standards and labeling. In the advanced world, standards and labeling are an end in itself. But in the developing world, it is a means to an end. So you can, no matter how strong or ambitious the standards are, if you lack that enforcement flair, then forget about it. Now, over here, the customs, their main responsibility, their task, their mandate is revenue generation. And that has taken precedence over the preventive aspect of their mandate. So all that they are interested in is revenue, because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, they are giving bonus based on how well they perform in revenue mobilization. So they don't care so much about your energy efficiency matters. In that way, we in Ghana have been compelled to be present at the various points of entry. So in effect, we are doing the enforcement ourselves. And enforcement comes with a lot of challenges. In Ghana, and for that matter, Africa, we are all one big family. So a friend, a family member, a kinsman does not understand why you don't bend the law to allow him to escape. Then you are tagged as the next to the devil if you don't do that. And to some large extent, you even do robust enforcement at the peril of your life. So enforcement is very, very crucial. And what we have managed to do among the customs is that we have targeted certain top-notch custom officers who appreciate the essence of global warming. So they are our ambassadors in there. And for every move that they make to make our work very light for us, we honor them. We have had an occasion of honoring a few of them, and that psychologically has motivated others to also join the bandwagon to help us to do proper enforcement at the point of entry, because it is a potential cash cow for unscrupulous custom officers. So I will leave the positive burden for my colleagues to address that.
Thank you, Kofi. And what a great example of using a positive message and creating awareness among those officials to bring them on board in this effort. Who wants to go next? Maybe.
So let me pick up on the enforcement point, underline it a little bit more. So I think it's really important, and I'm glad Kofi spoke to this. But essentially, one way to kind of think about this also is to take the analogy of the Montreal Protocol. So the Montreal Protocol has a formalized compliance assistance program where all of the regional networks of the ozone officers in each country are tasked with enforcement for their particular country. We don't have anything similar to that on the energy efficiency side, but it would be great to see this COP26, product efficiency call to action to actually bring in some kind of a network for energy efficiency of compliance. Now, I will say also that compliance on the energy efficiency side is not as simple as the Montreal Protocol, where you're testing a refrigerant is much easier. You can do it at the customs, but on the and this would bring the capacity building component on the energy efficiency testing side. You might need 2 or 3 days, for example, to test a refrigerator or air conditioner, depending on the test points and whatnot, right? And so you really have to kind of have a capacity, test lab capacity, to be able to enforce well. And in order to make that happen, you need things like either mutual recognition agreements between test labs for different countries, where, let's say, the originating country and the receiving country perhaps have a mutual recognition agreement. Or you might need regional harmonization efforts, where a bunch of different countries that each have small markets on their own and perhaps can't afford a test lab might band together to fund a test lab, let's say in one country for air conditioners, another country for refrigerators, and together enough market power to actually be able to have a sustainable testing program. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Nihar. And thank you for bringing the example of the compliance assistance program in the Montreal Protocol. I think it's a great idea to build on that for energy efficiency.
Sure.
Me, would you like to continue?
So yeah, you know, I think it's testing is an important issue, you know, and actually I want to shout out to Ghana, which is, I'm looking forward to seeing your lab coming up, Kofi. That's so exciting to me that there's, you know, usually I talk about, you know, there's lab capacity and we don't use enough of it, but in Africa's case, we need more lab capacity, that's for sure. Now, how to increase that and get to some of the points that everybody's been making. You know, that's actually, I was at the workshop earlier this last week, and this point, you know, for Africa, and this point also came up. And I have a couple of examples to share. First, I think the gold standard is what the IEA, you know, the 4E, the solid state annex has been able to do. I think that's, to me, is the gold standard. So one of the reasons that the solid state annex was formed, because the lessons learned from CFL. So LEDs pose such a challenge to the industry and us, the EE community, because it's a new technology. Not everyone knows how to test it. There's not enough agreement on standards. So the SSL annex was formed to address all of those issues. So they sped up the testing standard development. They built the capacity on testing, and that helped a lot of the laboratories around the world to have the capacity and ability to keep up with developments in LEDs, which has gotten us to where we are. But it took a lot of effort, you know, 20 some countries joining together, pooling their experts together, work. So it's a good example of how we wish things can be done in for different product sectors, right? But I see that, you know, televisions being addressed quite well. You know, the IEC's got now a new television test methods that hopefully is going to be adopted around the world, and hopefully that there will be capacity to build up for television testing to use the new standard. So all of this, all does it go back to? It takes a regional effort to an agreement, you know, MRAs, working together to align standards. All of those are very important, you know, to just make sure that the labs can test the same things at different places, right? They have to. So, you know, other efforts like benchmarking efforts, CLASP has supported a number of regional and international benchmarking efforts, and that helps build capacities because it looked at the different standards across regions, the laboratory abilities to apply those standards, and then, you know, some recommendations for alignment. All of those really help to build the capacity. Now, getting back to the questions about customs, as Kofi said, you know, customs, you really have to have a high value, high impact to get customs to pay attention. You know, it's really hard for them to go and inspect, for example, light bulbs. It's not really in their interest. They have hundreds of other products entering the market at the same time. And so for them to go and inspect light bulbs or individual televisions, it's not in their interest. So no. The question that my answer is around about, you know, we promote awareness and outreach campaigns to get consumers to demand energy efficiency. And when consumers demand energy efficiency, suppliers end up supplying energy efficiency, and you know, more products are appearing in the supply chain. And that's what makes the system work. It's, you know, suppliers have to know that they need to order products that meet MAPs. for import markets. That's how products enter into the market. You want consumers to be aware. They look at labels. They demand products that are energy efficient, and that makes increased availability. And it somewhat takes the customs out of the picture. But yes, for impact, you do need some high value, and Kofi's example is a great one. You have to allow customs, sort of give them some sort of skin in the game. Give them they see that there's some benefit in them enforcing the labels, the maps. That's the only way that they will make the EE product stand out. Otherwise, if it's just one of 100 products that they have to inspect in a day, it's really not in their interest to make sure that it's just too much for them to learn all of that. It's a lot of work, and there aren't enough custom officers to go around. So in some way to help them benefit from energy efficiency, like if there's penalties for non-compliant that they can share that with customs, those are the ways. But otherwise, I think we have to go in a roundabout way to change the market. Relying on customs to do all the work is not going to work for us.
Thank you, Mi. That's a very good point. Now, it would be great to hear Mexico's experience on enforcement or on testing capacity, or both.
I think one important topic that we need to talk about is to homologate the standards between countries. One good example is what happened with NAFTA between United States, Canada, and Mexico, because as you know, here in Mexico, we produce and fabricate all the home appliances that we sell, not only in Mexico, also in the United States and Canada. And so that need for these three countries to have the same energy efficiency standards for these products, for this home appliance that we sell in the three countries. So homologate the standards is a really good thing, to have really strong labs on this, testing labs, also strong verification units, strong certification bodies, strong accreditation bodies between the three countries, for example, and this point is really important because we want to protect the rights of the consumer. As Tom says, is key to promote and to the quality of the products and the services that the customers get when go to the market and buy a home appliance. So it's really important maybe to create the capacities on the quality structure, infrastructure, also the conformity assets as we talked about. And finally, again, the right of the consumers that they need to know what they are buying, how they are buying, how is the efficiency, and how is produced that home appliance, for example. I believe that is really important. For example, here in Mexico, we have 32 energy efficiency standards, more than 10 million of products, new products that sell in Mexico accomplished with the standards. And for example, the standards covers the 80% of the energy consumption at homes in Mexico. So it's a good example. This history more from 29 years in Mexico of the energy efficiency standards, and also with this experience, we're working really close to United States, of course, and Canada on homologize this topic. So I think that homologate this is really important for us. And of course, in this market with NAFTA, for example, come this customs situation that Kofi say.
Thank you. No, I absolutely agree that this regional alignment is definitely key to facilitate compliance and enforcement efforts. I have seen on the chat that we have to join back at 15 past. So I think we now need to move to final remarks, and I will invite each of you to maybe provide 1 minute final remarks and thoughts before we have to move to the plenary session. Shall we start with, I'm going to see in the order of my screen.
So
Nihar,
I'm going to have 3
takeaways
from this, many of which actually come from Kofi, I think. Anyway, so simplicity, de-risking, and collective enforcement. So simplicity, you know, in terms of making sure that the consumers are not confused at the end of the day, whatever information awareness campaign, etc., we're doing, make sure that the most energy efficient products are clearly available and demarcated as such to the consumer, whatever way we do it. De-risking in terms of, again, the perception in terms of finance that the banks have. How do we ensure that we are designing programs to de-risk the financing of energy efficient products? And finally, collective enforcement. So as Noe mentioned, you know, regional alignment is one way to do it. Mutual recognition agreements might be other ways to do it. So there are many ways, again, to come to this collective enforcement. But we do need to do it collectively as one global community. We can't be having, you know, one standard over here and another one over there. We do need to come together. Thank you.
Great summary.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you so much.
I think I'm really amazed how much we've been able to cover, you know, with the collective experience here. So I think it is what one of the key takeaway that we all should have from this, of course, is that it is, you know, we shouldn't all be working alone. We should be collaborating where we can, sharing experience. And this is, you know, this again, this is forum. Thank you to VEF to providing this forum. This is a great example. You know, everybody has been working hard, and it's you know, but it's better to work together. And so I think, you know, sharing data, aligning requirements, mutual recognition, you know, as Nihar said, they all work to make us more successful. So you know, it is, and that's why I'm glad to see that there are more activities, more initiatives coming on board, and hopefully we can work with all these new countries and economies that are now working in energy efficiency and develop their own standards and labeling program. Really good to have all the, you know, to help back them up and provide the capacity and all the experience that we can just to make everybody successful. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
thank you,
at the end, I
Noe?
think that energy efficiency is not a technical problem. We had machines, equipment for everything, so it's not the problem. Also, it's not the financial, the energy efficiency, get money is not also a problem. The money is there. Okay, we have some challenges on that, but the money is there. So energy efficiency is a social problem, because if we cannot to transmit to don't care at a level, you know. If the person that buy that product don't understand the level, that is the point. So we need to empower the people. We need to transmit this. We need to the sensibilization, and also we cannot talk about energy efficiency alone. We need to understand how we use the energy, how we consume that energy, and then how we can make that consumption more efficient. So we need to start to talking about energy performance also. It's really important to do that, because all this, without the social part of this process, we cannot complete our goals. So energy efficiency is a social process, and we need to get the sensibilization about these topics.
Great point. Thank you, Noe.
Yes,
Coffee.
thank you very much. I think that energy efficiency is the way to go in the future. And there is very little we can do if we decide not to tread on that path. It is important that we succeed. And before we succeed, there is the need for system leadership. There is the need for system leadership. System leadership, I mean, energy efficiency champion institution, energy efficiency champion individuals who will serve as a think tank in either the country or a region to come up, when we are talking about communication, to come up with the strategy to be able to hit the target audience with the right message. By system leadership, you need to consciously involve all the stakeholders who matter most to ensure that we get to the desired destination. We cannot do things in our individual corners and think that we will succeed. There's the need for that system leadership, individuals and institutions to sacrifice and put themselves at the forefront, be seen as driving the show so that the others will also be pulled along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kofi. I'd like to thank our panel for those great key takeaways and remarks. We need to get back to the summary session, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes to make sure that I can convey all this great discussion to the. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
For moderating.
Back with the meeting.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much.
So for the next few minutes, we're going to just spend some time hearing from the moderator of each of the breakout groups about the discussions in their group with a view to sort of giving us a complete picture of the discussions across the three groups. So I'm going to invite each of the three moderators of the groups to step forward and perhaps give us 3 to 4 minutes of summary of their breakout group discussions. I know that's a tall order because they were very rich discussions. I've flitted in and out of the breakout sessions, and there's a huge amount of experience and perspective in each of those sessions. So a quick summary is a really difficult ask, but in order to keep us to what we hope is a 3:30 finish here in Vienna, let's try and do that. So without further ado, I might invite the moderator of our first breakout group, Martina Bozzi from the World Bank's ESMAP program, to step forward and join us if she's back. Martina, if you're back, please, the floor is yours to give us just a brief summary of the key themes that emerged from your breakout group.
Sure, can you hear me?
Very clearly, thank you.
Okay, yes, it is a tall order because we had our group was very rich, had a very rich discussion. The panelists had lots of very pertinent comments and experience on this. We tried to really understand, the overall question was what information, media, and training are needed to deliver increased awareness and understanding of energy efficiency to consumers and create competent professionals. So we talked about training, the importance of training. We talked about, when we talked about the service industry, the service sector in particular, it was, the group thought that it was important to first define what is the service sector. It's a critical piece of the energy efficiency puzzle. And it was suggested that we really should look at it broadly in terms of the handling, the installation, the operation, and preventing maintenance services that are needed for products. There was also suggestions I thought was very good about, we all hear about the standards and labeling programs and the success of these. But it's important to tie the servicing sector to those because they can only be successful, those programs, if the consumer sees that the stated performance is also what they experience at home. And so, and this is tied to having a competent servicing sector. And I thought that was a very meaningful comment. And also, there was some, as we think about this in the context of different countries, particularly the Global South, it's important that there is more emphasis on local manufacturing. And so then we build the servicing sector and the jobs that go with it domestically. Because if we only import, countries only import products from the outside, then there's less capacity, less, it becomes too costly as well to invest in the servicing part of it. And so that was part of the comments. Then we talked about, we had a question of whether global standards on qualifications would be a good idea to enhance the skills level. And we had a good discussion. Obviously, all our panelists thought, to build the skill level, we need to create a demand for energy efficiency professionals. And that can be through mandating energy managers, so a little bit of a stick approach, so having industry mandate those energy, but also create motivation to get engaged in the energy efficiency field. Some of our panelists thought it was also important to give carrots to get people involved in the energy efficiency field. There was some. It's good. There's unanimous consensus that having standards is good, and it gives a level of trust, which is absolutely essential for energy efficiency and delivering on the performance. But but not sure that one global model would fit all the context, and that it was there's differences in countries that need to be recognized and taken into account, and it was felt that those standards should be adapted to the various situation and context of developing countries, building on the global resources, but adapted to the local needs. Also, what our panel thought was very made the point is that when you do these qualifications, it should not only be an academic exercise and typical curriculum, but really bring in the industry much more in an integrated way in defining these programs. To be able to make sure and to really rethink the educational programs and vocational programs. The experience of the transportation sector, where this is much more integrated, was given as potentially a good example. And the other thing, again, coming back to the point about making it local, the training should also be local and not always offered by an international institute, which is also makes it more expensive. And so making it local was a good opportunity. And then just the third question we had was, what are the best practice examples? And there were several, and I'll just note some that stuck out to me. It was mentioned that the experience of the Montreal Protocol was actually one that we should look at as an example, where actually they saw that having carrots worked better than sticks, and to make sure that the users see the benefits of investing in energy efficiency and using more energy efficient products. And the benefit really can be, has to involve the government in terms of tax reduction, visibility of the program, recognition of training. There's also good examples to take from ASHRAE, who has online programs and certification. There's a big discussion that we need to rethink how training is done and the whole digitalization environment. There's also a good example to maybe consider was the government of India, which was able to create a pool of energy efficiency professionals by mandating that large intensive industry required energy managers do auditing and reporting, and then creating a program to train and certify and recognize and ensure the performance of these professionals. Again, not a one-size-fits-all, and just to really rapidly, some of the key takeaways is that there's a sense with this COVID crisis, maybe we shouldn't let it go to waste for energy efficiency. There is renewed interest for industries to be more competitive and using energy efficiency. And so Mel mentioned some, digitalization and barcodes, and link again the stories of standards and label and training sustained performance. The uptake of energy efficiency products needs support, so it's not going to happen on its own. We've all, yes, it makes economic sense, energy efficiency, but there needs financing, there needs skills development and knowledge, and these three things need to be part of it. And in fact, one of our panelists recommended that maybe we think about a framework of adoption that is applied consistently across regulatory bodies and industry bodies in terms of standards, recognition, and then the support and enabling environment. I think we'll leave it at that. Again, I'm sure I missed some very good points, and I apologize to the great panelists that we had in our group. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Martina. It's a huge task for you to summarize such a discussion in just a few minutes, but thank you very much. And a nice segue, so you drew out some key themes around there about tailoring and localization, and that I think leads nicely into the session that Kevin moderated on country voices. So Kevin Lane from the IEA, welcome, and over to you, please, to briefly summarize the discussions. Kevin, we can't hear you. Hopefully it's not just me, but we're having a bit of problem with your mic. Okay, still no luck. Okay, look, in that case, Kevin, I might invite Ana Maria to step forward. Ana Maria, sorry to blindside you a little bit, but while we're sorting out the housekeeping issues on technicalities, please, I dropped into your session for a short moment, and again, very rich discussions. Please take us through some of the key themes that emerged from the discussion in your group.
Absolutely. So our group was Enablers for Progress. We had a great discussion. I hope I will do justice to all the great points that our speakers made. I think there were three key themes. We talk about consumers' awareness. We talk about some of the challenges in the financial sector to develop programs on energy efficiency. And we talk about increasing testing capacity and enforcement as a key components of energy efficiency programs as well. So first of all, we receive a beautiful masterclass on communications from Kofi Aguiarco. Definitely when we are talking about energy efficiency, he mentioned that we need to do three things. We need to keep a simple message. We need to clearly communicate what are the benefits and communicate in a way that the group that we are targeting understands. So in the case of consumers, of course, we're going to be talking about savings, and we're going to be talking about payback periods as well. We talk about examples as well of simplicity in communication and in labeling, for instance, by using technology neutral requirements, so that consumers are not faced by looking at a label and seeing different requirements for different technologies, but definitely something that communicates clearly what is the most efficient among all the technologies that you have on the market as well. We heard from Mexico as well the importance of sensibilization, and again using the messages that the general consumer and the people will understand and recognize, and for most of them is what are going to be my costs and what are going to be my savings. From the in the discussion about financing, definitely there are two main challenges in bringing finance to energy efficiency in developing economies, and that is that banks are interested at scale. And that they are risk adverse, so there needs to be some technical certainty associated to the projects. And we heard from the speakers some great examples on how to do this. For instance, public procurement programs and private procurement programs as well, in the form of buyers clubs that can bring a scale, that can take the risk away, and that can also reduce the cost of, especially from cost of the more efficient equipment. Let me see, we also heard another example of a model that works very well in developing economies, and is the ESCO model, and basically developing a dedicated financing facility. We heard this specifically in the context of India and ESL, and how they have been able to create a very large energy efficiency portfolio for street lighting, for electric vehicles, and also for LED lamps. They have a huge LED replacement program that has replaced inefficient lamps and has reduced the upfront costs of this equipment as well. We heard an example in Ghana on financing scheme for refrigerators as well, that now has 5 commercial banks on board, and specifically Ghana has been doing an effective job at creating awareness among the banking sector, bringing them to the stakeholders meetings and educating in order to reduce that risk aversion to energy efficiency as well. And lastly, we talk about the importance of enforcement and creating some capacity building in laboratories. So everyone agrees that robust enforcement is key, but it is very challenging in the developing world, especially when in general customs authorities have a different mandate, and that is collecting revenue rather than checking whether products comply with energy efficiency. So again, we heard from Kana, they have done an amazing job at basically creating awareness among customers, officers, and building incentives and creating motivation among those officials, which is something that has been proven to be very effective. We also heard something that could be interesting for the energy efficiency sector, and that is building on the successful compliance assistance program in the Montreal Protocol. So something to think about for those that are working on compliance and trying to see models that work. And also, of course, on the benefit of using mutual recognition agreements and harmonization efforts that will facilitate compliance at customs and also enforcement in those markets as well. Maybe I will finalize with the key remarks that my panel provided, because they were on point. They mentioned, simplicity, to make sure that the information is clear and available, and that we can promote the use of more efficient equipment. The risking, the financing of energy efficiency projects in order to basically remove that perceived risk of finance. The opportunities to do collective enforcement, again, by regional alignments and mutual recognition agreements. The importance of collaboration and sharing experiences, and this venue, I think, was a great way of doing that. One of my panelists says energy efficiency is not a technical program, it's a social problem, and we need to sensibilize. Of course, the conversation about consumer awareness and how we can frame the message was key. And finally, the need for energy efficiency champions, that I think it will be no surprise that it's coming from Kofi. He is our energy efficiency champion, and it's always speaking about the importance of having institutions and systems and individuals being champions in order to lead the energy efficiency effort. So that's, I hope that I was able to capture everything.
Thanks very much, Anna Maria. Great, fantastic job. And you obviously had some brilliant examples in your session. And an equally nice segue to Kevin. Kevin, welcome back. And let's take two. So the session on country voices, we'd love to hear the key takeaways from your group.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Can you hear me? I do hope.
Very clear, thank you.
Excellent, that's good news. So first of all, I had a large panel of 5 people, so I think we could have discussed for probably 3 hours off the panelists at times. I suppose, some of the main things are there were some obvious challenges just in some of the countries that really efficiency is not seen as a priority. So it's not getting the attention that it does in terms of policy impacts. There's other barriers in terms of low, say, literacy levels, whether that's amongst electricians, technicians, in terms of installing and maintaining equipment. So there's an underlying basis of those sorts of challenges. But we did hear some very good success stories, and maybe they'll get written up separately. But I'll just check a few of them. I guess in terms of capacity, it was institutions like ECOWAS have made a big difference in terms of whether that's policies for phasing out, but then also providing more knowledgeable people in the sector as well. In terms of information, they are designing some labels better in some of the countries to make them more user-friendly. And there was one additional one, which was also training at schools, and then also at the last year of schooling to try and give information to the children as they're leaving, to educate them about energy efficiency. A couple of the other good ones were demonstration projects featured quite heavily. So there's quite a few good examples within Tanzania, South Africa, a few other places, just demonstrating that energy efficient products are working as good, if not better, than other products, and that they're using less energy. In terms of capacity building, some good examples of introducing national standards with private sector partnerships, and that was whether using interns and scholarships to help train some AC engineers. There's some various other examples which I'm sure they've written up. The main key recommendations that are coming away were, I think, for consumer awareness, a lot of it was to say we should try and focus our efforts on understanding what's motivating consumers, whether that's money, but there could be other ones such as philanthropic ones, as Monica says. So we should really target those, but there may also be language barriers as well. So we saw some good examples of Sudan maybe trying to engage, see how we can change those sorts of messages that engage better with different languages. Demonstration projects that were mentioned, and I'll probably leave it at that point. And I'll hand back to you, Olivia.
Thanks very much, Kevin, and thank you all for doing a brilliant job of summarising these discussions. And just as a side note, Martina, Anna Maria, and Kevin, SEforALL collaborates very closely with each of your organisations, and we really value that collaboration and perspective. So we're just running a little bit over time, and my job is to wrap up, which I'll try and keep to the absolute bare minimum. So as I mentioned, I did sort of go in and out of some of the breakout rooms, some really general takeaways, starting with Mel's presentation and through the breakout discussions. Information and awareness development, absolutely crucial, obviously, and as we heard, clearly must be tailored to the needs of the intervention. So, for example, consumers being made aware of energy performance standards and the benefits to them of more efficient appliances. Similarly, on the supply side, companies should be able to understand the benefits of transitioning or improving their operations and technology to become more energy efficient with the help of energy management systems that track and optimize their use. We've heard very clearly throughout this afternoon that capacity building is essential when it comes to developing enabling frameworks, such as regulations and policies, as well as the institutional frameworks that are going to unlock finance for energy efficiency. These also need to be targeted and crafted to the different needs of stakeholders. And I heard some very good examples of these types of capacity building initiatives at country level in the breakout sessions. Finance has been a key theme. As we heard from Mel at the outset, we need to work to increase absolute volumes of finance to the sector and to track that finance. That's obviously important in light of the sector's clear economic impact. So we heard about demonstrated long-term job creation, but also at a project level, as we heard from Martina, to support demonstration activity. So once financiers see that solutions work, that helps them reduce their risk perceptions of the sector and increases their appetite to invest. We've also heard that there's a current opportunity to perhaps repurpose some stimulus spending to support the sector going forward. Just finally, as a takeaway, and as we head into next year, after what's been a very difficult this year, 2021 offers great opportunity to advance the sector at a political level. We have a couple of really big events. The UN Secretary General sponsored high-level dialogue on energy, taking place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in September next year, and then obviously a critically important COP26 later in the year. So just some equally quick takeaways, and thank you for staying a little bit over time. On that note, I'd like to thank you very much for your participation in today's session. Thanks especially to our moderators and speakers in the breakout sessions. You've done a fantastic job, and I'm sure we could have talked for hours about these issues. A reminder to everyone that the next Vienna Energy Forum virtual session will take place in January, on the 12th and 13th of January, under the theme Equity, Gender and Youth. So they are sort of key topics that we're all dealing with, and that promises to be a really good session. On behalf of the organisers, I've also been asked to invite you to follow the Vienna Energy Forum virtual series via social media, so Twitter, the Twitter feed Forum Vienna, LinkedIn, Vienna Energy Forum, Facebook, the VEF Virtual Series, and on YouTube. So please do that. And with that, thank you very much again for your participation and interest, for bringing your ideas. And with that, I will close the session and leave you to it.